OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
All right, it's 7:30. It's Wednesday morning. You're very welcome along to OTB AM, and it is a very special extended cast of characters. Owen's here. Owen, good morning to you.
How are you, Ger?
Kenny's here as well. Kenny, how are you?
Morning, lads.
Oh, look, they put you in the big box, Kenny. Look, you're on the big box. You're the main man.
Hey.
Congratulations. You made it now.
I look a little down there in the corner. Look.
Kenny gave me strict instructions this morning to not be looking down the camera, to look into his eyes, deep down into his soul. So apologies to everybody at home this morning. This is where I'm looking.
You think he's being rude to you, but actually he's being rude to the people at home who are taking their time to watch us.
Yeah, but as you know, Ger, it's all about me.
Well, it turns out that's true.
It is.
End of. Yeah, no, I do find it a bit off. It is a bit off-putting, isn't it? Trying to engage with somebody and they're looking in the opposite direction.
But I'm not looking in the opposite direction. I'm actually looking straight into your soul, Kenny. That's what I'm doing. I'm looking straight into your soul and the souls of all the people who are watching us at home.
Anyway, just saying.
Do you never watch TV and you're like, and they're not looking at you ever, and you're like,
now people are looking down the TV at you, and you're looking at the TV,
and you feel like they're talking to you.
Yeah, but I'm talking to the people in the room. That's different for the viewer at home, isn't it? If you're actually with it in the confines of the studio. And there's no kind of eye contact being made. That's
well, we obviously do a little bit, you know. It's a little dart from
token,
here.
Isn't it?
Not token. It's not. I'm trying to keep. I'm juggling many balls, Kenny. That's what's happening.
Owen's different to you. You're kind of like, you're ruthless, Jerry, aren't you? You're ruthless.
I knew there was something missing whenever I turn on RT and Kenny's in studio. I was like, the analysis is excellent, but I'm just missing something. Now I know. It's just that little look, the Butch Harmon look down the camera. If you do that, I'll be a loyal viewer.
Just saying.
I think Nathan Murphy is with us. Nathan, good morning to you.
I'm just glad to see that Kenny is still alive. We were on commentary in the North London Derby on Sunday. Cracking game. Finished the post-show wrap about 30 seconds after the game. Walked out to say, good job, Kenny. No sign of Kenny. Gone. In a flash. Never has a man moved as quickly in his life.
I don't know why I bothered, to be honest with you.
I was going to say you didn't hear all that, but you did hear it. I'm glad, because the earphones were...
torn down.
Yeah. I don't know why you bothered.
I think Nathan's referencing the golf, which obviously was the reason why I was hightailing out of the studio.
Last week you were in studio, Kenny, and you told us that at one stage in Medina you were happy enough that it was over because you're like, I can relax now and enjoy this. You were able to relax and enjoy the golf pretty much from Saturday morning. Late Friday afternoon, it was like, well, this is going one way and there ain't no way back.
Take it back. Didn't enjoy it.
No.
That was horrible. Yeah, Sunday evening. Nathan mentioned there. I left the studio on a little bit of a high, I'd have to say. Nathan, it was a great game, the Arsenal game. Spurs flew up to a pal's house to watch the singles. Jumped in, TV on, had a quick look up at the screen. Oof. Nah, it's all over, wasn't it? Hoping to see that splash, more than a splash of blue on the screen, but there was nothing. Not even a hint of a comeback, was that? No. I hope those opening 3 or 4 games, you hope beyond hope, don't you? You know, you win those first 3 kind of 4 games and maybe baby, but that was just never going to happen, was it? And you're right. It was no, I didn't enjoy it. It was horrible, actually, for a load of different reasons. It was just the fact at that point it was over. It was a load of different stuff. I don't really want to talk about it, to be honest.
That bad?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of stuff, a bit of the behaviour. I mean, the fans and all that, Nathan. I mean, I know there's always a bit of that over there, the American support, but that was great in a little bit. Some of the shouts from the side, but he sucked that up. But I actually thought some of the behaviour of the American players as the day went on was like, talk about like classless. I mean, glugging down tins of beer on the side of the fairway as the matches are kind of still in progress, and having the banter with the fans.
For the sake of balance, a friend of mine was there, and he was you're supporting Europe, dressed like the Europeans should be, and having the crack. And he said that it was Casey and whoever was playing in that match, that they were riling the crowd, and then the 2 Americans came and riled the crowd, and the beers got thrown and they drank them and it was a joke, and Casey and him were having the crack with them. So the Europeans, like, what we saw was this small vision of it, but the people who were actually there were like, it was in...
Yeah, but I was on the last day. I think that was the one the day before. I referenced the day before. I think it was like Justin Thomas sat out the afternoon, didn't they? Nathan, they were having that little bit of repertoire, whatever, on the first day, and all the beer. I didn't like it anyway. I take your point, Casey might there, whatever. But on the last day, when those singles were finishing and those players were finished, I think Justin Thomas was one of them again, and they were walking down the ferry and obviously keeping in contact with the other matches on the course. There was like, they were holding beers in their hand. Then the crowd would go, way, and then the beers would be down them one away, fisting. I just thought it was like extra.
Is that not the magic of the Ryder Cup? Do you not need that once every couple of years?
No.
A little bit difference, and the crowd get involved. And
I don't want the crowd involved in Nathan, all that type of thing. But that kind of I just didn't like it. I love the celebrations, and you're entitled to. But generally, that's when it's over. Hands have been shaking. The winning team goes back to the clubhouse. We've seen all those scenes before, champagne on the clubhouse and that type of thing, and that's fantastic. And that you're entitled to do that. But this was a little bit different for me. Maybe it was the fact obviously we'd lost and it was all a bit miserable anyway. You know what I mean? But no, I didn't like it.
Well, it raises the question of, once the Ryder Cup is won, should they just stop playing?
No, just bring everybody in off the course. No, you want to see the margin of victory.
You had another couple of hours there where actually, I think that's why they just started drinking, because they knew they had a couple of hours before it was all going to be over, because it was such a
I think it's a fair argument, to be honest with you, because it is a proper damn squib after that. I wouldn't say it's gone through the motions to a certain extent, because obviously players want to win, don't they? But it's not the same, is it? I mean, the focus isn't there. Players know it's over. Maybe you should just sound the horn, like I said, as that win.
Well, I'm going to sound the horn in this introduction. So let's tell you what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock on the morning. We're going to talk about the Champions League. We're going to speak rugby essentially from 8 until 9. We're talking about the women's team from 8:15. We're talking about the men's game from 8:30. After that, from 9:05, Graham Hunter's going to join us, and we'll replay a segment of Keith Andrews' interview with Joe yesterday at 7:37 though. A reminder that OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Could Lionel Messi do it on a wet Tuesday night? They were all the jokes beforehand, and it was like, no, he's kind of washed up, isn't he? But no is the answer, Kenny. Lionel Messi, not washed up. Able to produce a moment that was a replica of all the moments he's produced in his career since he's a 17-year-old. The longevity is sensational. The fact that he's doing it against Man City at this stage of his career is sensational. We are blessed to be amongst Lionel Messi.
Oh, you've gone for it there, Jar. You've gone for it. First of all, I didn't see the whole of the game last night. I was watching the Liverpool game, so it was a good goal. I heard it described by a couple of people as, this is amongst the best goals. He's,
I know,
blah,
it's just
blah, blah, blah. But
what I like about it was we've seen the goal a million times. We've literally seen that goal a million times from Leo Messi, and his ability to still do when somebody beats you doing stuff that you know they're going to do. That's either you're very stupid or
you actually see what he did though. He actually didn't do an awful lot, funny enough, when he picked up the ball. You're talking about some of the great Messi goals you're talking about, like slalom around 3 or 4 players, check through the legs, getting people off balance, Ivan Needle stuff, and then back in there. Basically when he just ran in this straight line, just lended it to Laporte, lended it to Mbappe, got it back, and it was a brilliant finish, like, you know what I mean? I wouldn't have it up there to be top 40 Messi goals, to be honest with you.
What I'm saying is he's done it a million times.
I'm just saying, I'm just taking it down a peg or two, like you're giving it the big. So it was a fine goal. I didn't see his overall performance. I don't know, he might have kicked the ball for the rest of the game. I don't know. So in terms of the impact going forward he's going to have there, let's wait and see. But if I will concede it was a tidy finish.
from the man who literally never scored a goal.
That's cheap, isn't it? Is that going to be Nathan's comeback every single? I'm not allowed to criticise any striker. That's just going to be the comeback, isn't it?
No, I think the
default comeback.
In fairness, my comeback. Hang on. My comeback would have been.
I wouldn't say that. I would have never come back.
Kenny
to
at
that.
least has seen all of the great goals scored. He was on the field for Beckham. He was on the field for Yeboah. He was on the field for the Canio. So he knows a world class finish when he sees one, as it flies over his head.
Can I just add, what is the difficulty level? And it's probably under 5 of what Kylian Mbappe does here, because all night Kylian Mbappe is trying to, I felt, kind of pointedly create opportunities for his teammates. There was a couple of opportunities in the first half where you're like, go yourself. And he just squares the ball, and it's like there was no need for him to do this whatsoever. And on this occasion, he was the perfect foil for Messi to score the most Messi goal. Is that harder than it looks, Kenny, or is it simple? When you're operating at that level, it is literally just a 1-2 and get the hell out of his way and let Messi do his thing?
Yeah, like I said, I didn't think it was a decent little layoff from Mbappe. Obviously, he showed up, but yeah, it was. You could see it almost coming. You know, Messi heading towards him, just laying it off. There wasn't much Mbappe could do, kind of back to goal. So it was a decent enough touch from him. So yeah, it was just, I couldn't get overly excited. It'd be interesting just to see how that front three, how they interlink going forward. I think there's still.
Let me ask you about the defenders. Why could the defenders not stop Leo Messi when you've seen Messi pick the ball up in the right wing spot and you know that he's going to do his arc and run and he's probably going to play 1-2 and he's going to have a shot? Why could the
it was kind of on transition, wasn't it? So Man City work was as if they're in a kind of compact defensive shape. When he ran inside, he was running into traffic. They're obviously committed to going forward. They lost possession, wasn't it? And the ball popped out, so before City can regain,
they had a pretty stupid long-range shot. Actually.
You look to your holding midfielder there. Anytime an opposition player receives the ball in that area and drives in the inside, you're looking to your central field to come across and bang him. Like that wasn't the case. Obviously, they're stretched a little bit up the pitch. And Messi being Messi, of course, he gets his head out before runs into those kind of spaces. I think Laporte generally does okay, to be honest with you, following him on the inside. But what he does wrong, it's only a split second thing. When Messi lends the ball into Mbappe, if you notice, he just kind of decelerates for a split second. i.e. he's popped the ball off, or suddenly your mindset's thinking, now he's not a danger. Maybe the danger's somewhere else. And by the time he realises, there's a chance he's going to get this back and assess the situation, it's just too late. It's just too late for him to react and get in contact with Messi. And of course, Messi has a touch there. Laporte probably gets back and makes the tackle. But of course, he's clever enough just to realise that. Yeah.
Oh, the genius is the finish as well, because any other player you expect him to go maybe low, bottom, left-hand corner.
Don't try and climb to his top corner either, Nathan. Saw a few people do that.
Ederson is thinking, I'm going to dive to my right here, and next thing he just flicks it straight into not quite the top corner, but as close as he could possibly get it to the top corner.
Yeah, no, he's brilliant.
I watched the game last night, Kenny, and Messi was definitely far more involved in, say, the last Champions League game. I know Owen saw him last week and can talk about how he was getting on in the league matches. But the big issue for Paris Saint-Germain again seemed to be the lack of connection between the midfield and the three forward players. And you look at the midfield that Paris Saint-Germain have, like they didn't start Wijnaldum last night, but Ander Herrera, Idrissa Gueye, Marco Verratti. It's not the worst midfield in European
Verratti's
football,
brilliant, but Verratti's brilliant, but he's only back from injury and he didn't last the full 90 minutes last night. Like,
if you have a midfield of Verratti,
that's a stretch.
If you have Verratti, Wijnaldum, and Idrissa Gueye, is that not a top quality midfield that can properly connect the defence in an attacking three?
I would have thought so. Kenny, you disagree on Verratti anyway?
Not the three that are on the table last. I like Verratti. I wouldn't say he's a top class midfield player. I wouldn't say he's the elite in terms of central midfield players. And I think that is an issue. I kind of said it, I think it was the previous Champions League game, and a lot of talk about the front three, but that midfield three, I know Wijnaldum didn't play last night, but when you talk about, Andrés Herrera, anytime you got Andrés Herrera in your centre midfield, you got to be asking questions, let's be honest. Idrissa Gueye is a competitive, kind of high energy, decent all round action midfield player. Paredes is there as well. He's technically a decent player, not the greatest athlete in my opinion. So
I think you're underrating Verratti. I think Verratti could be one of the great sixes in world football.
Could be, or
I think he's. I think
you think, or you say he is.
I'm saying
he's definitely.
Give me 5 better sixes than Verratti in world football at the moment.
Yeah, well,
or 3.
Do you want to? Do you want to commit the rest of the show to the?
Well, I mean, like,
I think he's a very good. I think he's a very good player.
I'd rather have him than Declan Rice at the moment.
Yeah, at the moment, I think Declan Rice will be the better player in a couple of years' time. I think there's better players out there than Declan Rice. I think they're a little bit short in centre midfield. If you're talking about PSG for the Champions League, you can pick apart most teams in certain respects. I think that central midfield area dynamic, and I'm not quite seeing at the moment from PSG. Defensively, I've no problem with them there. I think they're good enough. Goalkeeper, obviously, and just the front three. Certain aspects of the front three, just in terms of how they're going to defend collectively as a team. How much that front three is going to commit to what Pochettino wants from them. Probably one of the reasons why Idrissa Gueye and Herrera are actually in the team, to be fair, to give Pochettino a bit of credit. It's probably for that reason, because of the qualities of the front three, out possession. He doesn't want to place too many demands on them. So to counteract that, he feels as if he needs to get at least kind of 2 runners of sorts in that central midfield. That'd be probably Idrissa Gueye and Herrera. So maybe that's like the little kind of counterbalance he feels he needs in those midfield areas to get that front three on the pitch.
Yeah, it's a lot of energy that they have.
Can Poch increase the work rate and maybe the defensive capabilities of that front three, Kenny? Because it seems to me that certainly over the last season and a half, Neymar has improved in that department. Now, in fairness, he couldn't have got much worse. He was coming from a pretty low base. But it looks like Neymar, in comparison to Mbappe anyway, is more reliable when you're out of possession at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There were signs of that kind of last season, particularly the Champions League. There was a lot of comment. I think you could see it actually, yeah, maybe in terms of putting more of a shift in for the team. But you always feel it's an effort, isn't it? With Neymar, you don't really feel as a potential he's going to sustain that. And to a certain extent with Mbappe, I think Mbappe it's there, but just don't feel as if with these players it's just they're switched onto it. Do you know what I mean? Constantly, I don't think it's a case of maybe with Mbappe he doesn't want to do it. It's just a case of actually understanding your role at times out of possession. There's a bit of intelligence involved in that as well, as much as there is when he receives the ball and he beats 2 or 3 players and that's fantastic. Out of possession, like, you do need a certain kind of mindset, not just a mentality, but an understanding what's required of you. And some players just not as good at it as others. So yeah, I think that'd be interesting how Pochettino kind of manages that going forward, and even like individually how he manages those players, gets in their head and just draws that little bit more out of the front three in terms of the team ethic and kind of work rate and all those things.
We should just say, by the way, that Pep Guardiola was on the record about Marco Verratti last night. He said, "Let me say, I'm in love with Marco Verratti. He is an exceptional player. He is small, but you can always count on him. I'm happy he's back from injury." So Pep loves him, Kenny.
Tapping up.
Yeah.
Me and Pep.
The great football minds have united.
I'm in love. He is an exceptional player because when he is under pressure, he is calm. He has that extra touch to create extra passes behind our midfield. Now we are going to eat good, drink a glass of wine and recover. All right, Pep, calm down a little bit on the Marco Verratti love, I would suggest. Playing in the blue of City next season.
A little bit too happy for me. Opposition manager's gone there and got turned over. A little bit too much love coming from him there.
He's not a great loser, Pep, is he? He doesn't really know how to deal with it very well.
Exactly,
which is probably one of the best things about him. We were talking about what the range of outcomes for Paris Saint-Germain were. It could have gone off the tracks. It could go absolutely amazingly well. It could be a middle of the road team. It's hard to know because it's very early on. But a big win like this against a Man City team who are full of confidence after their performance at the weekend, that's the type of thing that smooths over the cracks. That all of a sudden, I don't know if you noticed, any time Neymar took a shot, Mbappe was in pretty good position, and he would always there was always like a over gesticulation, and then when Messi scores, the first person over to celebrate with him is Neymar, and he's hugging Neymar, but he's looking straight over, pointing to Kylian Mbappe, pointing to Mbappe, and Mbappe is very slow to get over, and Messi keeps pointing at him, and still Mbappe's not there, and he keeps pointing at him, and eventually Mbappe makes it, and then there's a photograph in the changing room of the three of them afterwards, all tops off, embracing. This is the, we're made.
Cans of beer with a glugging down a can of Ryder Cup style, or well, no.
Champagne in Paris, obviously.
What's your point at the end
My
of this?
point is they need results like this to get the gel.
Yeah,
to make
it helps.
Exactly, it's hugely important. Like against City, that's a big win.
Yeah, but I don't think you were looking at that PSG team and thinking, they're a little bit. I think that PSG team is good enough. We're talking Champions League here, aren't we? Forget about obviously the domestic league, but they've been around it for the past couple of years. Champions League, you know what I mean?
But the politics are off the charts.
Final. The politics are off the chart, but fundamentally, when you look at the squad, it's up there.
Yeah, you'd expect them to.
It's as good as anything. I'm talking about the midfield potentially, the balance there, not quite. That's fair enough. Like I say, maybe small detail to a certain extent. If you ask me, maybe why possibly they won't win it, but it's a knockout competition, Champions League, and on any given day, we know that this team is good enough. And Messi finds a little bit of kind of match fitness, not so much form, but that kind of mojo comes between the front three and they get it right behind them. Like I said, defensive, I quite like the look of them the last season, like Marquinhos, Kimpembe there at centre half, potentially strong central defensive partnership. The keeper coming in as well. He was excellent last night. Yeah, full back. So there's a lot of good there. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, you could pick any team apart, but they are in good shape and potentially could get a little bit better, I'd suggest, as the season goes on. All right, Liverpool absolutely hammered Porto last night. Their traditional winning margin in Porto. They've won 5-0 and 4-0, I think they're the last two. Am I no goals for Porto? 9 goals, I think. Yeah, right. And then 5-1 last night as well. So you were watching this, Liverpool, very sensational start. What's the first half? Right. Gotta be honest with you. My ma switched over, silent witness. It was over. The game was over. I couldn't stamp my feet. Liverpool 2-0 up. Yeah, second part from the night before. So yeah. No, they played well. I was impressed actually. Like almost played within themselves, controlled the game. Talking about PSG, Nathan, in terms of maybe the balance in the team, but I just thought Liverpool was actually the opposite. Kind of midfield and the front three perfectly in tandem. Looked impressive in possession. Looked quite impressive out possession. Was pleased to see Jones get a start in midfield off the back of his performance at the weekend. Probably said it before, like gone over all ground, but for me, like he's the future in central midfield. I'd love to see him get a run of games. Been saying that for about a year now. I think Klopp's got to commit to him. I think he's the answer.
Is he the near future, Kenny? Because obviously they're playing Manchester City on Sunday. Like, is Curtis Jones, has he the ability to go into a game like that against a City midfield with all their quality and get enough possession to make an impact?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I think he is. I've been looking for him there. Even last year, though, I was looking at him thinking I think he is now ready, because when he first came into the team, Nathan, very good technical player. He could impact the game in the last tours. A couple of spectacular goals when he first came into Liverpool's team, wasn't I? Remember one against Everton, etc., etc. So you see the kind of quality there. I looked at him and thought, well, defensively, how good is he? Do you have to carry him out of possession of the ball? And you thought, well, that's an area of the game he needs to improve. Still quite young, still developing physically and all those type of things, but for me, since then, he's kind of grown. Not that I've seen a huge amount of him. He's used him sparingly, Klopp, isn't he? But I got to a stage last season, he came in for a couple of games early on, Nathan, and I was looking at him thinking, physically now he looks stronger. The defensive side of the game is improved. You know, he's tracking people. He understands his role now defensively. You don't have to carry him. And that's important in this Liverpool team, because like we said, Mike spoke after the AC Milan game, the type of football which they play, that heavy metal, that kind of template which has been successful for Liverpool, they need those type of, in central midfield, you need those players, high energy. You can't carry anybody in there in possession and out of possession. And he, for me, last year, I looked at him and thought, he's ready now. I was waiting for Klopp to give him, you know, say, off you go, 6, 7, 8, 9 games and cement that place. And it never happened. He never kind of trusted him for whatever reason. Thiago obviously came in, played his fill of games, and for me, actually blocked his pathway a little bit, Curtis Jones. And now we've seen him for the last couple of games. I mean, again, I'm seeing more of what I saw last season. I saw once in the first half last night, Porto kind of broke out, Liverpool on the attack. They kind of broke out down the side. He stepped across from central midfield. There was a lad breaking down the side, just smashed him physically, put his arm across him, just eased him off the ball and won back possession for Liverpool. Didn't see him much in isolation, but I just thought, just have another indicator that this lad's ready. Because in possession, Nathan, you can't pick him apart. He's getting on the ball, he's using it well, he's punching, he's breaking the lines with his passing, he's linking up well, he travels with the ball, Nathan, he's a dribbler, he travels with the ball, he goes past people. I know he didn't go past anybody for the first goal, but he dropped the shot, it came inside, he got this shot on target. And now out of possession, I'm seeing a player who you can trust out of possession, understands his role, you know, tracking people, kind of making tackles, a good athlete, he's mobile. So for me now, he's the answer. He's the answer in that central midfield. If you're going to go with 3 in there, it's going to be Fabinho and Henderson. For me at the moment, he's the third one. You could argue maybe Keita off his performance against AC Milan has attributes to playing there as well. But these are the 2 players for me you've got to dovetail between, and that Liverpool midfield 3, particularly the game against Manchester City coming up the weekend. So yeah, he was the one I was really impressed with, but it was a really impressive first half performance in Liverpool.
How big a challenge do you think it'll be for him if he gets into a situation where he needs to play in a midfield where either one of Fabinho or Henderson aren't always available?
Yeah, no problem. I just think he's good enough, regardless of what's happening around him. I just think he's got the game now. I'm looking at him he can survive in that kind of company now. Just a little bit, I wouldn't say arrogance, but he exudes a bit of confidence now, doesn't he, on the pitch? Jones always has done. I think he's had that little bit to his personality. Heard somebody say, well, maybe that's an issue with him, Klopp. He's a little bit too confident in himself, carries himself with a little bit too much confidence. Maybe so. I'm not around the football club. Maybe Klopp had to keep a little bit of that in check early in his career. You know what I mean? Maybe he feels he's a little bit more mature now. But he certainly gave that type of performance last night. Just saw bits of the game against Brentford. Obviously got the goal against Brentford at the weekend. Spoke to a few people, said he played well. So I think he's the answer. Like, you know, I don't see where you can pull him apart. We can have a conversation about other players we've spoken about. I know Thiago's getting a bit boring out before, but he's got some outstanding attributes, Thiago, but there's certain aspects to his game which you can't pull apart, and there's no getting away from in terms of his lack of mobility and his lack of defensive qualities, where Jones for me has improved that side of his game, and with the attacking attributes which he has, what we've spoken about, for me he's developed into a really, really all-rounded central midfield player, probably more so than any other Liverpool player actually in the team. They all have their own attributes. Fabinho, kind of that defensive linchpin, etc., and Henderson. But this lad, for me, his game is actually more polished than them all potentially.
He's an 8, is he? Is that his position? Or is he a 6?
Yeah, I think potentially you could see him in the 2. He'll play as an 8 and the 3 at the moment. One of those advanced, no problem at all. But I think potentially you could see him in the 2 if that defensive side of his game improves as it has been, and that's rock solid. You could see him playing in an orthodox 2, and that's interesting because I think the discussion for me going forward, and couldn't have it last season because it all went off Liverpool last year in terms of injuries, etc. Everybody's fit now, everybody's looking strong. The game against Manchester City's coming up. The arguments are going to become even more so with Firmino scoring 2 goals last night. Can you squeeze this front forward into the starting lineup? Salah, Mane, Firmino and Jota. We saw it last year, Nathan. Even that Manchester City game, if memory serves me correctly, which doesn't often, but I think Klopp started with the front 4. So if the argument starts and Klopp thinks I'm tempted to actually get that front 4 on the pitch, now you can only play with a midfield 2. You can only play with those 2 number 6s that Jerry's talking about. Now who your 6 is going to be, so that for me is more interesting. Is it going to be Henderson and Fabinho, a real kind of defensive axis there, or are you going to be a little bit braver, choose one of those 2 that I've spoken about and throw in the Curtis Jones, who's that more of a box-to-box and contribute in different areas of the pitch. So that for me is more of an interesting discussion going forward for Liverpool this season.
Has that ever worked for Liverpool so far? Like, has there been a game off the top of your head where they've gone with the 4 lads up front and you've thought to yourself, right, this is actually something they can work with?
Wasn't it City last year? They went to the Etihad, wasn't it, off the back of the European game?
They lost. Oh, that was the draw last year. The 1-1 draw, the first of the matches.
Yeah, I can't remember. I know we went with the 4 and everybody was like, oof, what's going on here? I think Firmino...
Do you get the best out of Salah if you're playing with a 4? Does Salah not end up stuck out in the wing a little bit more?
No, I don't think so, no. There shouldn't be any reason necessarily why you shouldn't have the same effect, and he can play anywhere. Salah can play centre, you can throw him, but there's an argument for when you play with the 3, Nathan, and you don't play with the number 10 as Liverpool do at the moment. You play with the 3 centre midfield, 6-2-8, and you play with the front 3. Now, when Liverpool are at their best, say it's Firmino more so than Jota, when that number 10 drops in and drops off the front into deep areas and drags one of those opposition centre halves up the pitch, opens up space, that was creating space for Manny and Salah to make those diagonal runs in behind, and they kind of had quite a lot of success with that. When you play with the front 4, your central striker generally has to stay a little bit higher up the pitch because you're actually playing with a 10 in behind. So that forces your central striker a bit higher up the pitch. So that pens the opposition centre halves in. So that makes it a little bit harder for those wide men to come inside and time those runs. You're not driving into space now, you're driving into 2 opposition centre halves. So not so easy to thread those balls into the wingers coming on the inside. So that's the only small thing I'd say. But such is the quality that Liverpool for Salah has coming on the inside, playing little combinations in the individual quality, I don't think it'd be a big issue. And there's an extra player up there. You've got an extra player up there for me now to work those kind of little combinations high up the pitch. So I'm quite interested in seeing it. Rather than picking 3 out of 4, a lot of the talk will be who drops out. Is it Firmino? Is it Jota? Who's going to make way? Is it going to be Mane? Well, the conversation might become, well, now let's play the 4 of them and let's have a conversation about that midfield 2 now, that midfield axis in central midfield.
He played Wijnaldum and Henderson there last season against City, and those 4 did play. Now, whatever lineup this is, has it as a 4-2-3-1 with Mane, Firmino and Jota behind Salah as the way that the team lined out. I don't know if he would do that now, maybe 6 Salah on the right and Jota through the middle, or I don't know.
It can easily be done, but it changes the dynamic. Liverpool's template, the success they've had, have always been off that 4-3-3, those 3 high energy box-to-box central midfield players. That's how they played. That's how they're set up to play, and it does change the dynamic slightly when you sacrifice one of them and go with the front 4. People are like, well, it makes you stronger from an attacking point of view. Surely you got an extra world-class attacker on the bench. Yeah, does it leave you a little bit more open defensive? Well, that's the argument, I suppose. That's the interesting conversation.
Now, he did that last year when he didn't have his first choice centre-back partnership. It was Joe Gomez and Matip playing centre-back last year, so it'll be interesting to see if he goes with it this year with Virgil.
Does it make it more likely, the fact that Alexander-Arnold is injured and is going to miss the game, that you can three midfielders, you know you've got somebody to cover for Alexander-Arnold when he's bombing forward down the right-hand side. You've got to assume he'll play Milner at right back again.
Yeah. No, I think you're right.
Joe Gomez has had against City.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a good point, because when you play with the three narrow in midfield, it's easier for one of those midfielders to get out quickly. It's usually Jordan Henderson who plays in that right-sided number 8 when Liverpool play with a 3, and he'd be a little bit closer contact with James Milner on that side and get across easier and kind of double up with him in those situations. When you play with a midfield 2 that we're talking about, the distance is a little bit greater for that central midfield to get out in contact with the fullback on that side of the pitch. So I think you're right. If Klopp's thinking Milner's going to play there, I want to give him a little bit more protection against Grealish. I think you're right, Nathan. Then you stick to the 3 in there. You play Henderson kind of right side of a 3 as he generally does, and you make him aware of the fact that out of possession he's got to get back in contact and double up with James Milner every single time.
Okay, so that Liverpool in very good situation as it stands in the Champions League after a 5-1 win at Porto last night. The other game in that group, AC Milan were 1-0 up and a man down at half-time. Atletico came back to win 2-1 with a goal in the 97th minute, I think, from the penalty spot from Luis Suarez. So that's a big win for Atletico in that group. We've already told you Paris Saint-Germain beat Man City 2-0. Club Brugge went to Leipzig and won 2-1. So that's Brugge after a draw with Paris Saint-Germain the first day and a win at Leipzig. That's suddenly they're a real life prospect in that group. Ajax beat Besiktas 2-0. Dortmund beat Lisbon 1-0. Shakhtar and Inter drew 0-0. And Real Madrid equalised after 69 minutes. Flick on the live score commentary and they're like, half an hour left for Real Madrid to win this game against FC Sheriff. Your boys, Owen.
Boys.
Yeah, and Sheriff scored a late winner in the Santiago Bernabeu.
Unbelievable goal for anybody who hasn't seen this. An absolute screamer. And I mean, it's quite a boring statistic, but I reckon this is the first win in the Champions League for a team that associate themselves with the hammer and sickle of the Soviet Union since Dynamo Kiev in 1991. So that's what I think. Unless there was some sort of other Soviet outpost that competed in the Champions League and won a game, I'm not so sure. There was a phenomenal Twitter thread for anybody who wants to read up on them by a guy called Slava Malamud, who compared the country to those Japanese soldiers who kept on fighting into the 1970s because they thought World War II was still on. That's how he compares the people of Transnistria who associate themselves with this football club. A fascinating geopolitical story. Not a romantic one for anybody who wants to use that phrase, but an underdog story all the same. Just 5 Moldovans in the squad.
They don't consider themselves Moldovan, isn't that the whole point?
Correct, yeah. That's the thing. An interesting kind of place for the UN to wade into because they don't exactly recognise them.
Sebastian Till, who scored the goal, Luxembourg international, didn't even get off the bench in the win against the Republic of Ireland.
Oh, there was another Till, wasn't there, on the pitch?
There's 3 Tills.
3 Tills, yes.
3 of them. The youngest brother is the most highly rated of them, the one who caused all the problems. Saw him go maybe to one of the bigger clubs. Seems to have sort of gone off to Ukraine, I think, to play his football. The Till, who was impressive. But again, you look at that Luxembourg side, they've got a couple of players playing Champions League football this season. We don't.
This is a disaster for Real Madrid, or will they be okay? Is this going to squeak out of the group?
I don't think it matters whether they squeak out of the group or not, really. They're short, and they're kind of well short in terms of Champions League for me. But both Spanish clubs really, aren't they?
Both of the big ones anyway. Like if you go through their table at the moment, like you'd expect Atletico Madrid to be maybe the most likely of the Spanish clubs to do something in the competition this year. Now, in fairness, Real Madrid do have a win on the board, and they might get out of that group. I mean, it is a freak result. Sheriff 2 wins from 2, by the way, and sitting top of that group. And then obviously you're talking about Barcelona as well, who are sitting bottom of their group, behind Benfica, behind Dynamo Kiev, with Bayern Munich on top of Group E at the moment. That's after one game, obviously their second game tonight in that one. But yeah, Atletico probably the biggest shot of the 3 you suspect.
Yeah, I'd throw Villarreal in there to be honest with you. Yeah, I was really impressed with them last season, obviously, in terms of winning the Europa. And I just like the way they're set up. They're really well set up, well drilled, techniques, not too many standout players, but really good, really well set up, kind of in and out of possession. So I think they're the type of team who could kind of navigate their way through the group stages. I know it's not easy in Manchester United's group, it's not a given, but I think United have it all to do against them tomorrow evening. I wouldn't want to be playing these off the back of United coming to the game lack a bit of confidence, and you want to You know, you want to giving of a game, like really in terms of getting yourself back on track. This isn't it. These are a really clever outfit. Got some good operators.
You got Unai Emery on the record this week saying he hopes Solskjaer gets a long-term contract. That seems to be another one. A bit of a meme.
Just after he signed his other long-term, he just signed him 3 months ago, didn't he, Solskjaer?
Yeah.
Did I get that right? Did I? I thought he signed a 4 or 5 year deal.
Well, I think he said he hopes United stick with Solskjaer. Which whenever you see that written anywhere, it's usually like a Liverpool fan or something like that saying I hope it's Solskjaer. So I'm not sure if Emery is trolling Manchester United or not. But I don't know. Like, I mean, where are you on Solskjaer, Kenny? I'm sure this has been brought up with you in the not too distant past.
I'm not too sure. In terms of what?
In terms of the current job that he's doing.
Stick or twist?
What, today?
Well, yeah. How much longer does he have before you decide? Right, look, you gave it your best shot. Thanks very much. You're a club legend. You did your best, but it ain't good enough.
Yeah, I think that's fair. To be honest with you, I think we're getting close to that. To that point. You look at the makeup of the squad, the purchases that have been made. We could have discussion about in terms of that they have to reinforce and in certain areas would you spend the money in different areas, but where they are at the moment, the players that they have is a pretty strong squad. So as a manager, you've got to get the best out of it. You've got to manage the dressing room, manage the individual players, etc. But a big part of the game, regardless of the personnel, is just your kind of tactical acumen really as a manager. You know, how you set up your bodies. Do you get the balance right in terms of the team that you put on the pitch, and also big decisions when they come during the course of the season. And he's had a couple of them already, particularly in the game against Young Boys not too long ago with the sending off. He had some big decisions there to make. I'm not too sure he got them right, and I just don't feel as if that's maybe one of his strengths. You know, when big decisions arrive during the game, maybe latter stage of the second half, you got to change things up, and opposition manager does something, and you've got to do things quick. You've got to assess it quickly and make the right decision. I doubt him a little bit, but I know body language isn't everything, but sometimes you never get a sense if he's got a clear picture in terms of what he needs to do. A lot of talk and a lot of discussion going on the sideline with his cohorts around him in terms of what it needs to be done. So I think some managers are very clear and are very good at it. I think Tuchel, to be fair, has really impressed me in that respect since he's come in. Never kind of hesitates, if changes need to be made, whether it's the actual setup of the team prior to the game or even during the course of the game, tactical changes have to be made. They're made and you can see it. They're kind of clear, they're unambiguous in terms of what he's doing, and I'm always thinking, yeah, that's good, that's shrewd, I can see what he's done there. Whereas Solskjaer, I think I'm not too sure about, and it's not everything, but I think it's an important cog in the wheel in terms of having that ability to assess things coolly as the game's going on and make those kind of judgment calls and make those substitutions and get those decisions right. So I would question his ability to a certain extent in that respect, and that could be a problem.
Can you learn that on the job, or can you hire somebody in your backroom team who's good at that you just go, right, I think
it's a fair point. I'm
going to be the public face here. I'm going to make sure that the superstars are happy. I'm going to be the link with the past, and you're going to be my eyes and ears for the 97 minutes that the match is actually on.
Yeah, I think that is a fair point. It's good management, as they say, and they delegate good people around you. Like I said, don't know enough of that Michael Carrick. Of course, we all know about kind of Mike Phelan and those type of people. I just don't know how good they are, having worked with him. But you're absolutely right.
It'd be remarkable if Carrick was already at the level of Guardiola or Tuchel at this early stage in his career, wouldn't it? You kind of.
I think ideally you want, but the crux of it is you want to see those abilities in your manager. I think as a player. If you see any kind of deficiencies, you look at your manager and think, well, he's a great lad, nice fella, nice 1v1, good lad. But when push comes to shove and those big moments come in games or whatever, and you see he's deficient that early, you see it. You know what I mean? He hasn't got those abilities. I think as a player, he just kind of drops a little bit in your estimation. You know what I mean? I think when you have a manager who's kind of all-encompassing, in terms of manager, in terms of managing players, but also tactically very astute in terms of the setup of the team, great understanding, he's as good as that, he's all rounded, then I think as a player you're thinking, oof, this man's absolutely top class, and there's a few of them around. But I think you're right, not all managers have that ability and they get good people around them to kind of supplement them. But at the moment that would be a little bit of a worry with Solskjaer at the moment. So yeah, I think he's got to be a little bit careful. I don't think he's heading for the door in the foreseeable. But
see, here's the thing, right? I didn't either. Certainly didn't. Like 3 weeks ago, you thought the wins were coming, the performances will get better. The international break was an opportunity to like bet everything in, but it's 3 defeats in 4. Now the West Ham game doesn't really matter. The defeats in the League Cup, except they haven't won a trophy, would have been no harm, and they picked a bad team for that. And it's like suddenly it does matter because they lose against Villa. And I actually thought the performance against Villa was not as bad as everybody made out. Watched the full game back. Villa got very lucky. It's one of those things. Villa aren't rubbish. It's it's not like losing to Villa. It's not like Villa losing to Villa in the last couple of years. It's actually they're a really solid team and they have all their players back. So I can make the case, but if they lose against Villarreal or they don't win, then suddenly the pressure just ratchets up and it goes off track really quickly.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think the pressure does build, and kind of rightly so for the reasons that I've said. So I'd be more interested in terms of I look at the set performances really, but performances come from in terms of how you set up and the players that you put on the pitch. So when I look at the team sheet, and I see the two lads, I see Fred and McTominay in central midfield and Pogba pitched up on the left hand side of a 3. For me, straight, I'm talking about in terms of set up of the team, set the team up in balance, that type of thing. Players complement each other, etc., etc. Straight, I'm thinking, oof, bloody hell! Surely we're not still pitching Pogba up on the left hand side of it. He can't play there. There's certain fundamentals there that in that team for me, which if you're going to play with the 2 in there, you haven't got that top class number 6 that we were talking about a little bit earlier, and you haven't gone and invested in it. You haven't brought that player to the football club, and that's another issue. Whether he could, we don't know. So you are where you are. You're going to play with them 2 in there. Take Pogba out of the team. You pick you pick Sancho, you pick Rashford, Martial, whoever it is who operates off the flanks, whoever you want. Don't play a central midfield player left side of the 3 for me, because you're carrying him out of possession of the football, so straight away you're out of sync. So you got to see that for a start. Put Pogba in the team in his best position, one of those central areas, wherever it is a holding 6 or maybe an advanced state. We can talk about that, but don't pitch him up on the flanks now, because he's no good to out of possession. You're carrying him, so you got to see that, and if you see it, you've got to be bold enough to make that decision. Is he bold enough to take on those players and sit them out and bench him? I'm not too sure. His reaction to Ronaldo coming off the bench against Young Burns when he took him off too late. He should have taken him off at half time for me. That kind of almost apologetic, one arm around the shoulder when he came off the bench. I'm really sorry, I didn't really want to take you again. It's not a good look for me, and I just feel as well, sometimes let's get rid of the manager. Well, who's out there? As soon as you start having that conversation, Jay, you got who better's out there at the moment? Right, sack him now. Who are you going to put in there? And for me, it's like you got a guy with screaming at you. I mean, unless Antonio Conte has taken a job in the past a couple of weeks, I don't know about. But there's a manager there for me that can go in, has got the kind of force, the personality, who's got the smarts in terms of setting up a team with the players that he has. And like that kind of tactical astuteness that we're talking about, for me to kind of really kind of transform that football club. People might say, he's throwing a grenade in here, this fella. I think maybe to a certain extent that's what it needs at Manchester United. Someone come in with absolutely total confidence in himself, and what he needs to do, understands the game, understands how to win titles and what's required in terms of the team put on the pitch.
No, sorry, I was waiting for Kenny to finish to ask you about the fallout from the Villa game, and actually a common theme over the weekend, which was Bruno Fernandes sent out this massive apology for missing the penalty kick that cost Manchester United the game. We saw Rory McIlroy in floods of tears apologising to his teammates that he'd let down the entire continent at the Ryder Cup. Were apologies a thing when you were playing? If a player you were playing with did something stupid, got sent off needlessly, would they come into the dressing room afterwards and apologise to everybody? Would you have expected it?
Vinnie Jones, say?
I don't. I think there would be a small maybe occasionally someone would come in, or maybe it was a mistake, bad back pass, cost you, maybe cost you the game, maybe came into the dressing room, somebody would hold their hands up, lads, that's on me, and that was it really. It was done. I think that's fair enough, you know what I mean? I don't think it's necessarily required. If someone felt the need to offload that, it was down to me. But generally the players kind of would accept it, because we all know nature of the game, we all do it, as long as it doesn't happen too often, repeats itself, it can happen. So players suck it up, and I think they'd take that. But that was basically it, Nathan. It was basically within the confines of the dressing room, and I actually wouldn't expect it. I just certainly wouldn't expect that from somebody. We all feel it. I've made plenty of mistakes myself, and players know. You don't have to be told sometimes. You walk into the dressing room, they're your teammates, you know each other. I've made a mistake, it's cost us maybe points. I come into the dressing room, sometimes I don't need to hold my hand up, I don't need someone to point a finger at me, and players know, players understand that he's hurting, you know, I don't need to jump all over him, you know what I mean? So yeah, to answer your question, no, there wasn't maybe somebody to hold their hand up occasionally, but that'd be it. People would kind of move on pretty quickly. Now don't get me wrong, occasionally you'd walk into the dressing room after the game, someone's made a mistake, you'd get it, you know what I mean, you'd get it as well. You know, that would happen as well. You know, not necessarily, I'm not talking physically here necessarily. Well, maybe occasionally, but yeah, but that was it. But Nathan was always played out. I never remember anything getting kind of played out, you know, on the pitch or in public. It was always a case of like take it into the dressing room. You know, like let's get into the dressing room.
I'm not sure if you're lurking on Instagram, Kenny. Like you might have seen Bruno Fernandez's post. He said, "I will come back stronger for me because these are the standards I hold myself to. But most of all for my teammates and our fans." And David De Gea came back and said, "Always on my team, love heart." Cristiano just had a little fist bump. Harry Maguire, love heart. Juan Mata said, "Yes, we are, love heart." Bicep emoji. Jesse Lingard, 2 love hearts. Martial, love heart. Diogo Dallo, with you every day of the week, love heart. And Donny van de Beek, love heart and bicep. So which of those would be your response if a teammate came in and said sorry?
Yeah, but that's obviously I don't know, you're taking it to a different level.
Answer the question. Which emoji would you use?
I'm not in that environment, never have been. I'm not really around that, so I don't.
Do you use emojis?
Yeah, I do use. Yeah, I send messages. I send messages. So there would be an occasional emoji, but this is different, isn't it? So this is perception. What you're talking about, I'm guessing. And I'd feel as if this is now an obligation now, isn't it? So this is where we are.
Yeah, and who doesn't?
I need to be seen.
Who was slow to do it? I'm surprised Van de Beek had the balls and gumption to do it. He's not even part of the team. He's just like,
I forgive you, Bruno.
I'm here as well. Yeah, it's like, what?
I accept your apology.
Get out.
No, well, one of the few things I can't make a huge contribution to, I'm afraid. Like, but
you did. I think you did very well.
I've had a quick look back at all my messages with Kenny Cunningham. He likes a fist pump, likes an old fist pump, and an upside down smile.
All right, you're an upside down smile guy.
Oh, is this to you now? You're checking your previous text, Nathan. Is that I'm thinking?
Yes,
is he into my phone? That's a security issue. Right.
It would have been a security issue. Yeah, very, very. I mean, phone hacking. Nathan would have been on sticky wicket there. But luckily, you sent those messages to him. Come here.
It's all right. Nothing wrong with those. There's nothing wrong with that. But like you said, that's different, isn't it? This is thrown out there to the general public.
Yeah, exactly. That was private. That was private. He's
all of that rubbish.
For breach of privacy.
The confidence. Yeah.
Are you in any WhatsApp groups with the Crazy Gang? Are you in contact with any of those lads?
I wouldn't say regular contact. No. Yeah, I have been a couple of get-togethers. I must admit, for some years, no, not so much. I wasn't a big one for really turning up once I retired. Kind of, you around the place and stuff. So I wouldn't have seen it for a long time. But I pitched up a couple of reunion kind of Christmas get-togethers with the Dons. So that was really good actually. It's good to see a lot of the lads. It was a good turnout. Yeah, they're a good bunch. You forget really, don't you? They were a really good bunch.
At the time, you're like, this is grand, I'll have this again. But then in retrospect, you remember there was something special there for a while.
Yeah, I thought every club really. I wouldn't single out my time at Wimbledon as special, but I really enjoyed my time. Maybe didn't appreciate it as much, maybe at the time, maybe immediately afterwards, maybe looking back. Because I spent quite a bit of time. I forgot really a reasonable amount of time there. It's my most amount of 8 years was it at Wimbledon. So yeah, and it was a decent enough. Yeah, it was a decent enough time in terms of, well, not in terms of we did this and we won that and whatever, like, you know. But it was a nice. Yeah, it was. It was a good environment to be in. The dressing room was good. There was plenty going on. There was fireworks going off around. There was lots, lots of stuff there.
We'll come back to that a little bit later on because we're just up against time. But you've raised a few things there that I wouldn't mind getting into a little bit later on. 087 9180 180 is the WhatsApp number. He's shaking his head saying no. Sure, we'll see. We'll see. Send your questions in if you have one. Nathan, good stuff. Thanks a million.
Cheers, lads.
Cheers, Nathan.
With thanks to Gillette, we're celebrating the return to normality with a special prize of UEFA Champions League tickets to Chelsea against Malmo on the 20th of October with flights and accommodation included. You can enter on the Off The Ball Twitter page, so twitter.com/offtheball. We post an image of a bearded sports person every day this week. Who's this? Who does this beard belong to? Just respond to the post and tell us who the person is for your chance to win this amazing prize. Put your best face forward with Gillette, and the hashtag is best face forward. I do want to just call out one of the entries we've had. We never do this. Seamus McMullen from Dunloy says Jerry Adams.
Tommy Tiernan, eh?
Yeah, neither Tommy Tiernan nor Jerry Adams, but they both had salt and pepper. A bit of salt and pepper going on. Similar enough personalities, very important people in Irish history. OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. We're going to take a quick break. We're back talking rugby with Irish Rugby International Anna Caplice next.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The football pod with Paddy and Andy.
The amount of people looking for Andy Moran around Positano, it was all the rage. They're asking about what he's going to do next. When's the next episode out? The football pod's gone international.
Download the OTB Sports app and subscribe to the GAA podcast feed now.
Car insurance is boring, but you don't have to be. Get Set Go is the kind of car insurance you can sort in a few minutes online, then bounce on with your day. Are you ready for Quick Start Insurance? Get a quote now at getsetgo.ie. MCL Insurance Services Ireland Limited, trading as getsetgo.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
21 minutes past 8 this morning. I'm delighted to say Anna Caplice is with us, who plays rugby now with Gloucester and of course with Ireland. Anna, good morning to you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Busy few days, but yeah, feeling good. The sun is out here in Gloucester this morning, which was a change from training last night.
So the Gloucester move happened last week, or certainly the announcement of it happened last week. Had it been in the works for a while?
A little bit, yeah. I had I came back to Dublin last year to focus on Irish stuff, and I'd left Quins kind of mid-season. COVID had a lot to do with that as well. So, yeah, I'd been thinking about what my next move would be for a while. Gloucester were in touch a lot. I'd been speaking to some other clubs and some clubs in different countries as well. I was thinking about going down to France as well, but actually, the decision only came kind of recently enough when I'd seen the opening rounds of the Premiership. I was preparing for qualifiers, so I knew that I wouldn't be able to make a move till around this time anyway, which bought me a little bit of time. And yeah, I really liked the sound of Gloucester, a new city. I know some of the girls from having played against them. I know that they're a really good club. I really liked the sound of the management and really liked how we'd been speaking to each other. And yeah, I decided to go for it with Gloucester in the end. And yeah, it's just been busy since the announcement and moving over and all the rest. So this is just my second or third day here, only come over on Monday. So
right.
Yeah, it's looking good.
So you're a new kid again in your early 30s. How does that feel?
That's how I'm telling myself that I'm still young. Do you know what? I'm used to it. I move a lot. I'm always happy to kind of take on a new adventure. I'm not much a girl to kind of settle down and stay in one place for too long. So I'm used to it, and I'm really, I really like the feeling around here so far. Except for the rain last night, that was tough going.
Surely you're used to the rain if you're Irish. Come here. What is the story?
Everyone was saying to me, but no, it was pretty bad last night. Sorry, go ahead.
What's the story with the league? Is it semi-professional? Is it full-time professional? What is the actual setup at the moment?
I suppose, yeah, we could start to say that it's semi-pro now. It's professional for girls who are on contracts with their own unions. So the RFU and the Scottish Union as well, they'll have their own players on full-time contracts. Not all of them, just whoever has been selected to take a contract. And then other than that, there will be players like myself that are on a contract with the club, and then others who aren't at that stage yet. So it's actually kind of a mixed bag. So there will be extra training throughout the week for people who can make it, and then your regular Tuesday, Thursday and Monday evening kind of gym skills and on pitch sessions for just like any other club.
So are you professional? Is that what you're not working at the same time?
I will be getting a job. I suppose semi-pro. So it's the first time actually I've gotten a contract from a club, which is really nice.
Pretty exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, it is exciting, and it's very new. So it's kind of I'm learning how to deal with it and take it on. But like, it is great to finally get some kind of financial return and support for playing club, which is such a massive part of your week and your life and everything. But I will be getting a job to suit around that, like I've always done, and like most of us always do.
Okay, so that's the current situation. Let's talk about the situation with Ireland at the moment and the failure to qualify for the World Cup. What's your assessment of what happened over the last month? How did we go from a position where we were not quite contenders, but felt like contenders, to not qualifying?
Definitely contenders, and that's not, when it was announced to us that the World Cup was pushed off, that was a really big announcement, because we were expecting to qualify, and not, I have to because a few people have kind of raised this question, were we complacent? Were we going into these qualifiers thinking they were in the bag? Absolutely not. All summer we were focused on, we've seen Spain play on the Sevens World Series. We know what kind of players they have. We know that they used to be in the Six Nations. We know that they're no stranger to big competitions like this. We've seen Scotland beat France. We've seen the performances out of Italy the last few years. We knew that this qualifiers was going to be super tough, but I think we also thought, and I certainly believed, that if it was us at our best, we could beat anyone, and we've done that before. We beat Italy last year in Six Nations, and or even earlier this year, I should say. And we always put in good performances against Scotland, and I don't know is the answer to your question. What's my assessment? I still don't know. It's still very raw. That was only on Saturday, and I had to pack up my bags and move out and move in and drive to England and all the rest. So I haven't been able to think about it in full. And I think that I'm probably happy to not think about it for a little while, because it's still very raw. The disappointment is colossal. I still can't really believe it. I couldn't believe it. I know I wanted to be in Italy, and unfortunately that didn't work out for me. So sitting at home watching it was... I'll never forget it, to be honest. I'll never forget how that feeling and how upset I was, and I was just crying, and my family were there, and they were trying to say the right things, and it was just really difficult to be consoled in that moment, because everything changed for everyone then in that moment. I can't imagine how the girls on the pitch must have felt after being completely spent, because it was a very tough game. I still don't know. I still haven't watched the game back. I'm not even sure if I will. I don't know is the answer to how the wheels have come off.
So you made the point there that you weren't involved, and it must have felt even more difficult to kind of watch that, because you had no influence over it. And I presume you felt like you should have been there and you should have had the opportunity. What happened? Why didn't you make the cut?
I mean, anyone who was on the squad who wasn't selected feels like they should have been there, and feels like they definitely could have been there. Anyone that was on the squad is definitely good enough to be there, or and the amount of work that everyone put in. Everyone who isn't selected feels like they should have been there. For me personally, I've had a very kind of up and down kind of international career, where I've put in good performances and then been dropped, and then came back in and put in good performances and then been dropped. So it's just been the nature of the beast for me personally. Not to say that I'm used to it. I still was absolutely heartbroken when I wasn't selected, both for the last Six Nations and for the qualifiers as well. And it's not like a race where you run the race and the fastest people get selected. No, it's very subjective, and the coach will pick his team based on what he believes he needs, and every single player is different. So that's what makes it difficult to select and to be on the other side of it then. And yeah, it was really hard for me to watch at home. And like I came to Gloucester, and speaking with the Gloucester coaches here, like I had full intention still of getting a ticket to New Zealand. Like I was, that's why I'm here in a club like Gloucester, to put in that work, to put in the performances, hold my hand up high, and put my name in the hat for selection for Ireland going forward, and for the World Cup eventually next year. And like I say, that's all changed now. It doesn't change how well I want to perform with Gloucester, in club. Like I'm still really looking forward to the season here anyway. But I don't know. It's still, like I say, it's still all kind of settling in. And speaking to a few of the girls that were in Italy, I know it's only starting to hit them now as well, kind of as they're going back to work now and back to reality, and the vision that we all had for the next year has changed.
It's interesting that the people in Parma, I assume, had a very tough reaction to the performances over the past little while, whereas maybe your view was a tad different. Like, are you mixing the sort of short-term view, as in what happened over the past couple of weeks, with a more helicopter view about what has happened over the past couple of years? Have you thought a little bit about that at all, in terms of the structures that are in place and some of the things that need to be done outside of the immediate national team in order for Ireland to start qualifying again and to start succeeding again?
Yeah, I definitely, that helicopter view is there, and that only comes kind of sometimes when we're giving it prolonged thought. But, this moment right now was very important. These qualifiers were the overriding of everything. But yeah, when I take a step back and I think of when we lost to Wales in that 8th place playoff in 2017, what a massive moment that was, and the knock-on effect from that. That's why we're here now, was just the knock-on effect of not qualifying in the 2017 World Cup. And we were certainly a good enough team to qualify and even do better in that last World Cup. And it didn't work out for us then either. And, that is, to use the phrase again, the nature of the beast. And sport can be very cruel. And that last World Cup was certainly a cruel result for us and that team then. But now to have it kind of roll on and be in a similar position, like I know from chatting to a few of the girls that were over in Italy, and it was different for them because of COVID and restriction rules. They were in the hotel a lot, and it was very tough to try and entertain themselves constantly, because usually at a tournament like that you can walk and go for a coffee and get out of the hotel and go to the shops or whatever. But they couldn't this time, so that was very tough on them and all of the teams. Speaking to them, because they had a lot of free time, so I chatted to whoever I could, whenever I could, just to kind of, take their mind off things. But it felt, from what they were saying to me, it felt similar to how I felt in 2017, being on the high bench, being out of the squad, but still having to, turn up and do your jobs, like filling the water bottles, holding the bags, having, supporting the girls on the pitch. And that a lot of that felt similar. It reminded me of the 2017 World Cup, something that I, not just being on the high bench, but I think overall with the squad, and overall with the results, and a good result, a bad result, and up and down throughout the tournament. It sounded very similar to 2017, and I never really thought that 2017 would be emulated again, or it never would be repeated. But it seems as if that's what's happened.
Could I just ask, why has that happened? Because I agree with you. That did seem like, at least it's the low ebb. I guess that was the sentiment around 2017, and it seems that we have the same idea now, as in, at least this is the low ebb, but there's no guarantee of that. So why did that low ebb get lower?
I don't know. And I think a lot of people don't know. Going into, if I compare the two programs before 2017 and before these qualifiers, they were quite similar. Very tough camps, really kind of pulling together. I actually think that this time, and the how we bring together the 7s and the 15s programs. In 2017 was very tough because the 7s girls weren't available until very late before the tournament. So we had some girls coming in very late before 2017 into the squad. And then this time around, there was no 7 series. So the 7s girls were with us the whole time. So that was kind of a big difference. There was no kind of last minute drop-ins into the squad that, needed to be, brought up to scratch like very quickly. So that was one difference. And you'd actually think that might have helped or made a big difference, like performance-wise or results-wise, but somehow it hasn't. And the real answer is I don't know. And I intend to look into it myself, personally. I want to know, like, I feel like I have, and hopefully still have a lot more to give to the Irish jersey, as a player. But, beyond that, I hope to kind of make sure that I know what the infrastructure means and what the development plans are and is this the right thing? And I want to know all that. It's hard as a player because you just want to play and you have to focus on, you have so much to think about anyway. You need to be studying line-out scrums, plays, and focusing on your nutrition and your sleep and all these things. So you don't have time to kind of look into it as a player. But, I can see that on Twitter, past players having discussions online, like open discussions online about what may have happened or may not have happened. And it's good to see, and it's healthy to see these conversations happening. And, there's no denying there's an awful lot of people in the RFU that put in an awful lot of work. And I don't want to see them being, talked down about or saying that they didn't do enough, because a lot of people certainly did enough. And I don't know, again, I'll say it again, I don't know how the wheels have come off like they have.
Okay, and good stuff. We wish you the very best of luck at Gloucester, and thanks a million for being so honest with us this morning about the situation there. Cheers.
Thank you so much.
It's Anna Caplice giving us her thoughts on the situation with regards to the women's team in rugby. We're going to talk about the men's with Keith Wood in just a moment. 087 918 180 is the WhatsApp number. If you want to get in touch with us, you can always get us by leaving a comment on the YouTube stream. Go on.
Just one little nugget of breaking news before we get to Keith Wood this morning. Maurice Brosnan, the sports writer who's been based in Australia, says that Kerry's Stefan Akunbar has left Geelong and has returned home, as the club has confirmed. Brosnan himself says an absolute gift for Jack O'Connor, which is something that I
look at Owen's face.
100% agree with.
Look at his face, Kenny. Look at his face.
This is something to do with Kerry, I'm guessing.
He's excited.
He only gets this excited when it involves his own.
He's trying to pretend he's not that excited, but this is the biggest thing that's happened to Owen.
Messi signing for Peter. No, I'm only joking. It's not Messi.
It is, isn't it?
It's.
Look at you. Share it, Owen. Give us this.
He was a great minor. He was a great minor.
Is the equivalent of Verratti coming into your midfield for Kerry?
Yes.
Jerry's
Where does he play?
He's going to play somewhere in the middle third. He came on. I can remember his first year minor. He came off the bench quite a lot to come into midfield, and always made a difference. Always made a difference. It was kind of like, why wasn't he starting quite a lot? But he coming in against tired legs, he was just a crazy player to be coming up against when he played 50 minutes. So this is exciting. I'm not sure where he's going to play, where Jack O'Connor is going to use him, but in that middle third somewhere, which might have been a department where Kerry are lacking, is somewhere where he might go. So
is it better to be a good general or a lucky general, Owen?
I mean, you don't need me to answer that question. You do not need me to answer that question.
How excited are you?
One leads to another, I'd suggest.
But it's just yeah, exactly. One leads to the other, and I think.
So you think Jack might have got him back?
I need to actually check up. Did he play under Jack? I'm not actually sure. Maybe that's part of it. He can go and get Mark O'Connor next.
Can you go scouting players? Is that part of the remit?
Can Ireland scout players that Australians have already scouted to get down to Australia in the first place? I think you can, and I think this is the brave new era for the GAA, Kenny.
Are we playing transfer phase now in GAA? Are we playing?
Wow, that's a good point, Kenny. Are we?
Is there
Kerry are among the best at protecting their players from leaving. I think this was one of those situations that they got wrong, but obviously they've managed to get it right now.
Yeah.
So yeah. Jack O'Connor famously got somebody back from Kerry in the past, won All Ireland.
Yeah, he's done a couple. 2009 he had Ty Kennelly back from Australia. He also brought Mike McCarthy back into the fold, and it turned their season around.
He has not been as excited about anything. He's dampening this down so he doesn't get too carried away.
Well, I think this is good. So personally, I'm not invested in this club, but I think this is a good thing. Some of the talent which has gone abroad for different genuine reasons, you know, it comes back, and we all benefit. Don't we? The whole game benefits.
Absolutely, it is very exciting.
Back into the game.
It is very exciting because we all believe that the players who aren't available are the best players. Yeah, and the Andy Reid, the Wes Houlihan effect. And you definitely would have thought that if Kerry only had Stephen Cumber, they could have won the All-Ireland by now. And look, watch Owen get distracted over the course of the rest of the show as he's just desperately trying to get into...
We've lost. He's not even listening to you there, Jerry. He's like...
I think to say it's an All-Ireland winning edition is definitely an overstatement, but his potential...
But he's going to say it anyway. But you're going to say it anyway.
His potential was huge as a kid, so I'm looking forward to him sliding back into Gaelic games.
Watch Owen watch his body language over the next hours. He's desperately trying to get on the phone to get into his WhatsApp group. Cumber's back!
No, that's already been sent. That message was sent about 2 minutes ago.
By you?
By me, yeah.
Oh, you weren't even watching?
I was talking and typing at the same time.
Right.
WhatsApp web.
You've got the... I was thinking maybe you've got the... speech to text thing going. So open Kerry Mafia WhatsApp group.
Please don't do that.
There'll be a few emojis getting sent out.
Owen, Kenny's asking you the next question. What is the stream of emojis you've just sent?
I'm not an emoji guy really, Kenny, except for in extraordinary circumstances, and this is one of those circumstances where I cannot reveal. It's too early in the morning.
I'm pleased, Sheahan.
Well, that is big breaking news this morning. Kerry are back. Jack is back. That's a winning move if ever there was one. What if this happened last week?
Well, that would have been interesting. Like I want to think that this is like as soon as he got the job, he just picks up the phone and is like, "Come on home, Stefan. We got a place for you midfield, or at least you're going to be in contention." So. Maybe it is like it does seem to have aligned pretty quickly, but at the same time, when you get into September, October, all these moves start to happen. It's moving time essentially in the GAA. We're going to see a lot more managerial appointments. This is not going to be the only Aussie return, I dare say, or the only Aussie departure we see over the next little while.
It's been confirmed, and it has been confirmed by the club there. So there you go, big news for Kerry Gaelic football this morning. Stephen Cumber is returning home.
He did play under Jack. Our ref has just put up a picture of himself and a Cumber with is it a -star award or something like that? So I need to brush up on it. I need to accept. I need to brush up on the.
He's in good shape.
Yeah, he is.
So you see him as a midfield, one of those midfield runners to extend the career of David Moran.
Potentially a wing back, potentially a wing forward either. We will see.
All right, okay. So that's the breaking news this morning for Kerry Gaelic football. If you want to get in touch with us, we'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. I think Keith Wood is with us this morning. Keith, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm in great form, thank you. Though I do think there needs to be a new segment on the show for Kenny Cunningham and his emoji conversation. I've never heard a guy be so awkward in his life. It was quite entertaining. I fit into that category.
I was just about to ask, how is your emoji game, Keith?
My emoji game is exactly zero. I think I'm accelerating in age at a ferocious rate. I've no interest whatsoever in it, and so I felt comfortable seeing how uncomfortable Kenny was with it, and the idea that you need your full team to publicly give you thumbs up or all that sort of stuff. Send a text, for God's sake, you know.
So how would you have dealt with? Did anybody ever come back into the dressing room and apologise in your time?
Yes, of course. We did loads of things wrong. You're better off to apologise pretty quickly, I think. Try and get it over with as soon as you can. But there is a bit of gnashing of teeth when you make a mistake, and some guys do it. Look, we've had it on this show of Ronan O'Gara saying he cost us a European final, and that's his view on it. Our view is we should have scored another 3 or 4 tries and it should have been a moot point. But you know, guys get upset because they take things personally because you put on a jersey, you have to deliver for the jersey when you don't do it, which we've all made a hames of it at different times. I think an apology is probably right, but you have to get over it very quickly because you have to turn up the next week. That's the reality. And actually, if you hide behind the fact that you've made a mistake, you've never any chance of getting over it. That's one of the big elements that becomes very important for a sportsman.
Okay, let's move on to some of the stuff that's very newsy. In all the papers this morning, Stephen Larkham's comments about, he was asked about whether or not he wanted a new deal, and he was like, yeah, of course, there's no hesitation is how it's being framed, and he said, we all do. And so he's essentially doubling down on the existing coaching ticket, and there seems to be a general sense of relief that Larkham will still be involved because he's been linked with moves back down under, and it looked like at the weekend there were some clear signs of his influence on it. But it's a bit early for them to be doubling down on the head coaching ticket at the moment, given that this is such a pivotal season. And do you sign him up now and make sure that it's not a question for the rest of the year, or do you kind of say, well, look, let's wait until Christmas and see how it goes? What would you do if you were in charge at the moment?
Yeah, I think these are interesting. I'm sitting on the fence on this only for the reason that the coaching ticket, Johan van Graan's been in for quite a period of time. There has been a huge amount of change, and there's been a huge amount of problems that have been caused by COVID. So things are delayed a little bit. And I think it does require a high level of performance between here and Christmas. And the conversations will happen in the background, but you also know that we in the media and every other media outlet will ask them that question all the time, because none of them will want to answer it immediately. And it's fine asking it the first week, but it's going to be asked for the next 10 weeks until such time as a decision is made, or whenever it's made. But I do think you need to see Munster make more of a progression in terms of style, in terms of getting the most out of its younger guys that are coming through the system. And I think that becomes a period of time that the powers that be in Munster and the IRFU, because it's both, it isn't just Munster that make these decisions, and how they pull together their thoughts over who they would want. I mean, I want to see more of Stephen Larkham, because I think he's beginning to ease his way into a serious coaching role, and I think that's something that's very important. But I think it's incredibly important for them, and a huge amount of pressure for them for the next 2 or 3 months, because the decisions have to be made, because 6 months prior to the end of a contract, those coaches are entitled to go and be on the open market to go and look for a new job. So the powers that be have to pull that information together, A, to decide that they want to keep them, B, that they decide that they don't and still want to get the most out of them for the last period of time. It is the most vulnerable part of every single coach or player's career, actually, is that this particular 3 or 4 months. But look, all Munster want is to win. They want trophies. They want the opportunity to have trophies. They got into a final last year, and I think if they got into the final last year and played at their absolute best and lost, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. I think this conversation is happening because in the big games against Leinster last year in particular, Munster just didn't quite get themselves up to a gallop, and they were just beaten by another team managing their way around the field, taking an opportunity when they did, and Munster didn't show anything other than take the ball up short or kick it. And I don't know that, I think everybody is sick of that as a style. So I think Munster need to show more in this next period of time for the coaching tickets to get the support.
Yeah, I totally understand that. The one thing, just to kind of bring this out to an even bigger level of the politics involved, is obviously it's a significant moment for the IRFU in that at central level there will be a new chief executive sooner rather than later, and one of the first decisions that chief executive is going to have to make is whether or not David Nucifora gets a new deal, unless Nucifora preempts that by not taking a new deal. So we could have a scenario where we have a new coaching ticket at Munster, a new Grand Poobah in charge of the rugby side of things, and a new CEO as well, which would be a lot of change. And you've got a relatively recent new CEO in Munster, which probably, I would say, actually is in the current coaching ticket's favour, that there's a lot of moving parts over here. And does anybody want everything to be moving, or do we make small changes? So it's hard to know whether or not the macro will affect the micro.
Well, I think having a lot of moving parts can be a plus or be a minus. I still have a little bit of a bee in my bonnet over the end of the last World Cup. It was almost a self-review for David Nucifora and his role within Irish rugby. And I think that there has to be a higher level of independent scrutiny. It actually goes to something that Anna Caplice said when she was on, and my God, did she speak well. She's got a future in broadcasting if she likes it. She's a very strong and confident voice. But it's the idea of what goes wrong. Well, until you get to the bottom of what goes wrong, it becomes incredibly hard to fix it. And if you're on the inside, you can say, this is what's wrong, but you need a different perspective from the outside. Now, I don't know who that perspective is, but it needs to have a balanced perspective as to what's happening. So there's been changes that have happened in Munster. Munster needed to become far more commercial. It has. It also needs to become far more, I think, youth-oriented. And we've seen that now. We've seen that partly by design and partly because of COVID. But we'll take the benefit of both, if that's the right thing to say, in these very difficult times. But there's nothing wrong with change, because what we're trying to say is we want all our Irish teams and the Irish team to be at the top table all the time. So do we continue not making a change because it might upset not full success? I don't know if that's the right thing to say. I think if you make changes to try and have the best system in place, that's not to say that any of the guys aren't doing their job, but we want them doing their job at a higher standard, because that's the demand of all the supporters and the fans. Of course, not everybody can win all the time, but it's been a long time, we'll say, since Munster had a jersey, had a trophy.
Yeah.
So they want to make changes at that stage because they want to be back at that table. So there's a lot of pressure for people that goes in. I remember having a conversation 3 or 4 years ago, and it was an argument I was having with Jerry Thornley on this program. And it was over the fact that people mightn't think that Munster is a great place to go to. You ask any burgeoning coach, budding coach, what it is that he wants to do. He wants to play at a team with a history and a team that is maybe underutilized and has an opportunity to go and achieve something. Munster is a very big ticket. So we need to try and get that understanding, knowing that there's financial constraints on everything, but that doesn't stop change. I don't think you should stop it for the fact that you may need to change 2 or 3 or 4 people, or there may be different new people coming into it.
So maybe the time is right for change, fundamental change in Irish rugby. There's a new chief executive coming in to set the tone. It might be the time for David Nucifora to say, okay, you had 2 contracts, that was great, thanks very much for your work, and we're going to go a different direction.
Yeah, well, look, it's funny because I've never spoken to David Nucifora about his role in Irish rugby, and I can see from the outside that I would look and say, yeah, he's done some really, really good things, like some of the things he's done. I would disagree with other things that he's done. I do believe in the idea that you're much better off with a province being stocked with players from that province if you can manage it. In the short term, it can be great to have people from other provinces, but you don't ever want to lose your identity. And I think that's something that we have to be very careful about. But I don't think there's anything wrong with change for the sake of it. Sometimes you have to risk things to go a bit higher. I was just thinking back, reflecting for a period of time over the last summer, was that rugby got sick of the manner in which the Lions and South Africa played. Now, South Africa always played that way, and we know that they played that way. But the Lions didn't have to play that way, and they did. And we've subsequently seen that both New Zealand and Australia have beaten South Africa playing in their own way. And maybe that's something that we need to try and think of as well, that there are styles of play that suit certain teams, but there are other styles that don't. And I think we need to have a little look at what style might suit us in the future.
And that obviously comes from the top down.
Both, I think. It's very interesting listening to Anna talking about the reasons why things didn't happen. And for me, I felt because of COVID that there was a lack of depth of confidence in the team. And when they got a knockback, they got a big knockback. I remember that happened in the men's team in 2007, where they suddenly didn't perform as well against lesser teams, and they just lost a little bit of sense of confidence in themselves. That can happen, but I don't know. A bit of change is no harm whatsoever, but you want to make certain that you keep everybody that is doing something well, and they can be part of a process. So that's why I'm saying for Munster, next 3 months becomes incredibly important, because I think everybody wants to see that there is that potential for change, that potential for being able to play at a different level and a higher level, because in truth, the Munster's way of playing for the last number of years, and I would say Ireland for the last couple of years, which is huge amount based around one-out carriers and kicking the ball to get it back, that is a style that seems to have gone by the wayside this summer. So are those teams able to make that progression? So that's a really interesting pressure. The game changes every couple of years. Are we going to be quick on the change?
Were you excited by what you saw last weekend, Keith?
Was I excited? I rarely get excited in the first couple of matches. You don't quite know when we're looking at the South African teams that are up, that are shorn of their World Cup stars, and I know Ireland or the Irish teams were as well. You kind of have to take it's like a pre-season friendly. I know it's not a pre-season friendly, and I don't want to dish the new competition too early. Do you know what? I loved the score. I loved some of the play. There were mistakes, of course, which I wasn't going to get overly excited by either. I thought it was pragmatic, and I'd like to see us push that a little bit more. But I think Munster are trying to find their way. I don't think they're not quite there yet, and I don't think we'll see how good they are for a few weeks. I thought both Leinster and Munster just were they know how to win in a lot of matches. But it's not these matches; it's the bigger matches. So. How willing are they to push it a bit further? I know Leinster are much further down that track and much more comfortable with it. Munster need to get there pretty soon.
Like you mentioned there a couple of years ago, having the debate about Munster not being an attractive job. Surely it is. Surely it is now.
It's a great job. No, it's a great job. It's a great job for any coach that can come in to get the most out of a group of players. It is one of the top jobs, because they are. And it's funny because of the rivalry that happens between Leinster and Munster all the time. But Munster is a winning club. If you were to go to American football, they win a huge amount of their games in their season. But they want to be a championship club. They want to have silverware at the end of it. And because that hasn't happened, that means it's a huge draw, because the history of it is there. So, they might have to break a few eggs to make that happen. But that's kind of the joy if you get people in. So I would say, when we go back to the original question, and you look at Johan and Stephen and Graham, those guys coming in, they've been there for a while. Their contracts are going to be up. The change kind of has to happen, I think, in this period of time for them to get it, or maybe it doesn't. I don't know. That's only my own point of view. I did note that during the summer, Ian Costello came over from the Wasps coaching group, and he was in Munster before. I remember Ian before, and he's now in as part of heading up the academy. That's a great change. That's one of those great appointments that you have, which is someone who actually understands what it is and wants to build on that idea of Munster. And, every time we have this conversation, I always want a blend. I want a blend of some of great quality from overseas, and I want a blend of great guys from internally. It's good to have a homegrown coach get his experience elsewhere and come back again.
Yeah, and again, it would be great to feel like there's an overarching plan around that, and if that was communicated, and maybe that's the point that we'll get to over the next while. Very interesting season, a kind of a pivotal season for Irish rugby. Big opportunity, no excuses anymore for Munster in terms of the makeup of their squad and the investment that they've had. Leinster so close to glory in the last couple of seasons, but not quite there, and they haven't massively improved their squad in terms of huge investment. So it's going to be relying on the young players coming through, the existing players' levels of health. You know, Dan Levy being back is a huge thing for them. We'll see a few others as well coming through that might be able to change the texture of how they play. But largely, it's going to be the same group of players. So, with Ulster's great crop of kids, and Connacht have kind of been a bit screwed by the way the tournament has been set up in terms of we expect them to finish fourth in their conference pool panel pot. What's it called? What are the? There was an official name. Conference. Is it a conference? It's not a conference. There was a sexy marketing term that we were all told to call it last week that I've unfortunately forgotten. With that, and then the fact that there's massive change coming at the very top of Irish rugby, I don't remember as much being up for grabs in Irish rugby and the kind of the future being up for grabs as much as it is right now.
Yeah, do you know what? I think, you know, having played in that system for quite a long time, having watched it for longer now at this stage, I always think it's in that state of flux, you know. And look, we have had an incredibly steady hand in Philip Brown there. So Philip and I started in the IRFU at the same time, which is quite interesting.
Wow.
I went into the Ireland squad in '92. He went in as secretary of the old amateur organisation in '92. I sent him a text just congratulating him on lasting longer than me. But I mean, he was a very calm hand there for a long time. And lots of people kind of get frustrated with the calm hand because other things could have been done. But the IRFU were kept in a very good financial position and didn't make panic decisions at the start of professionalism, definitely under his steerage. So I think we're not in a very bad position under which to make gains. But again, it's about getting some of that structure right. And look, I'll go back to this, and we've had loads of these discussions in the past. This is wide ranging again, which of course seems like the start of something else. But our structure is built for amateur rugby. We then put and bolted on a professional provincial system and an international system on top of a 125-year amateur system. And I feel we're still not giving enough love to that amateur system, be that schools or clubs. But I do think that that's one of the legs of the stool. And I think we wobble because of it. And you'd love to see a big summit or a way of pulling together the conversations of the needs of the clubs in the country and a defined view of what they'd like that to be. Because if you ask any club, they feel as if they're out in limbo. And that makes it very tough. You don't want to have disenfranchised members within your system. And yet I don't know that that is properly structured. So I think if you're looking for change and flux, you should be getting the most out of the system. You should be understanding that there is an entire amateur system that needs an awful lot of support as well. And of course the focus has to go to the professional because that's where all the money comes in.
Yeah.
But you need to get that balance right. I can't say that that's right.
Well, it's good inputs equals good outputs. It was very wide ranging. We didn't get too much into the nuts and bolts of the actual games themselves, but it's essentially the start of the season. So fingers crossed. There's plenty of good stuff for us to talk about, and it's not just all politics as the season goes. Keith, good stuff. Great to have you back.
Pleasure. Great to talk to you, lads.
Send us some emojis.
Fist bump emoji for Keith.
John Duggan, good morning to you.
How are you, lads? How are you doing?
What's your emoji game like?
In what way?
Well,
tears. Constant tears from John following the golf for the weekend. Emojis. Sorrowful emojis, I'd imagine.
Well,
heads exploding. They got a head exploding emoji. Head exploding.
WhatsApp.
Probably a few of them being sent.
Instagram, particularly. This came about because of Bruno Fernandes' apology and the various emojis that his Manchester United teams got back to him with. Kenny's not an emojis man. Well, that's not. That's not true. Actually,
that's not true.
Yeah,
it's not. Kenny, just a bit selective. It's a bit time. It saves me a bit of time. It's a practical consideration. Nathan's talking about send him a fist pump, but it's a fist pump or it's a nice one, Nathan. See you whenever, blah blah blah. Boom. Just kind of encompasses all of that, doesn't it? It means obviously I don't have to interact with him again.
I don't like the thumbs up emoji. I find that very impersonal and almost half rude.
Oh God, I use it all the time.
I don't like the word cheers as well. So
I use that all the time too.
I use cheers all the time.
Oh, I'm
Cheers,
screwed
okay.
here. Finally, it's like, oh, this is John.
We get on. It's okay.
The thumbs up is the emoji version of K. If you thumbs up someone and that's the only part of your message, a thumbs up is fine after a body of text, but thumbs up on its own, you may as well just say K. And then somebody knows you're very, very mad with them.
My favourite emoji is the money flying away, because that's what generally happens in my life. So that's especially with the virtual insanity. That's one I like. But yeah, no, I would use them in a kind of a nice way, whether a smiley face or whatever. That kind of thing for any kind of good relationships that I have.
Could I ask John? It must be a long time, John. You can think of a worse weekend, the Sunday evening, reflecting on Spurs' trials and tribulations, and obviously post Ryder Cup. That must be as bad as it gets on a Sunday evening in your household.
Well, I was actually working here in the office, and I turned it off. The good thing is because I was kind of agonising over the clash between the Spurs and the Ryder Cup. And then I just turned off Tottenham, and I just watched the rest of the singles. Now I watched the highlights back and everything, but it was relegation form, lads. I'm actually going to see your great club Villa on Sunday, Ger. But it's relegation form, and I'm expecting a hostile atmosphere directed not at Aston Villa but at the Tottenham players and their management this weekend.
I saw only the goals and the quick highlights. But it seemed to me that there were just a few moments in that first half that went the wrong direction. That if Harry Kane had a chance, that ends up being a goal for Arsenal 8 seconds later. And it was interesting, Harry Kane was the last lunging tackle for another of the goals. And Harry Kane has a shot that, like, he kills brilliantly.
It's deeper than that, yeah. I think, I don't know how John feels, but it feels a little bit deeper than that to me, John. You could argue about how tactically maybe set up the team up at the weekend, end on Belly and Ali, kind of a little bit open maybe in that midfield area. You rectified it at half time, he brought Skip on. I don't know, John. I get a sense, and Nuno, I'm a big fan of Nuno. I think he's looking at a few of these players, and even some of his most experienced players, and even Kane in particular, and looking at them and thinking, can I really take you with me on this journey? Have I got you on? So I think he's really questioning the mentality of all of the squad, and in particular some of those senior players.
Well, you should have saw Kane.
Well, Kane has probably made his worst start to a season. Now, he has been a slow starter in previous seasons, but he's definitely playing too deep. You'd have to wonder if Ndombele has worked out as a signing. There was too many gaps in the midfield the other day, as you said there, Kenny, especially in the first half. Like Ali trained on, as it were? Ali has regressed. Winks, Dyer, Sanchez, are these players good enough to be playing at the top of the Premier League level? I'm not so sure, and it's hard to know what the answers are, because he wasn't the first choice, Nuno. Whether the players are playing for him or not, there are no easy answers here, and there doesn't seem to be a creative link between the midfield and the attack at the moment.
If you could turn the clocks back 5 months, would you keep Jose Mourinho as Tottenham manager?
No.
Surprised you even hesitated there, John, to be honest with you. I'd agree with you. I think he was done, Jose, at the club. I think the whole thing had imploded.
Do you not Nuno or Jose? You take Nuno over Jose, would you?
Yeah,
they didn't want Nuno. This is the thing. They wanted Pochettino back, or they wanted Fonseca, or whoever they wanted. They didn't want. They want Hansi Flick a few months ago as well.
But now you know that those candidates were not gettable.
Yeah, but at the time they were, and it's just
you can't write him off though, John Nuno. He hasn't had enough time in terms of getting, assessing that squad. You have to get into a dressing room and get a bit of a sense of it, the personalities. You might know him from a distance and whatever else, but until you get in there and you kind of see him up close and you work with him on a day-to-day basis and just get him, an indicator in terms of, right, I can depend on him. Yeah, absolutely, 100% in terms of his character. And I think he's in that process, and I think he's probably made his mind up on a few of them, John. He can't say that publicly, but I think I get a sense that he's actually been disappointed in terms of the reaction that he's got from a few of those players, senior players in particular. So he needs to clear that dressing room, John, doesn't he? And it's going to take him a couple of transfer windows to do that.
The dressing room wasn't great towards the end of the Pochettino era. The dressing room wasn't great once the honeymoon period of Mourinho ended, and the dressing room doesn't look great now. So that suggests to me it's more about the dressing room than the manager.
Okay, we'll definitely come back to this, because unfortunately it is a long drama of pain that we get to talk about when it's Spurs. Speaking of long dramas of pain, the Galway hurlers looked like they had a decision made. It looked like the right man was getting the job. But now there is a little bit of a doubt about this. It looks like Micheál Donoghue has ruled himself out of the running for the Galway job.
Well, that's at the back of the Irish Independent this morning, and I generally would have feel that Galway's a county where they go for insiders. Like Gerlach Mann was the great experiment with an outside manager. It didn't really work. Shane O'Neill hasn't worked. So whether they're looking for a Jeffrey Linsky type figure or not to come in, Micheál Donoghue delivered. Like, he was the man. We know what he did at Clarenbridge, and then he won the All-Ireland in 2017. And Galway have chronically underperformed at senior level, given the success they've had at minor and under 20, under 21 level over 3 decades. So I don't know if they've got a local candidate there, but they've always had the players go away. They've had the physicality. Would Micheál Donoghue been able to persuade Joe Canning to come back? Possibly. But the fact that he's apparently not taking it now, I would have to say is a blow for Galway hurling.
I mean, there's no significant link being published, no public evidence that Davy Fitz is in the frame, and yet he's still being linked with it.
Yeah, but I don't know. You may remember James Scahill had his view on that, which was quite interesting. He that needs a Davy Fitz, because what Davy Fitz is going to bring you is he's going to bring you a bit like Mourinho, short-term sugar high, and he's generally, when he's gone into camp, he's delivered early in his tenures, whether it was with Clare, with Wexford, or with Waterford. So, look, he'd ruffle a few feathers. But whether the culture in Galway would be embracing it, Dave Fitzgerald, I'm not so sure. I don't see any solid links about it at the moment. I just see them as it's a lovely headline, but I don't know if there's any real substance behind it.
Okay, and then the other big story today is again, Manny Pacquiao has announced another retirement. He kind of hinted at this last week to go into politics and run for president. It's official now. It's officially official.
Yeah, well, because he did a 14-minute Facebook video today to talk about his retirement and his run for president of the Philippines next year. I was trying to think of other sports stars who went into politics. Imran Khan, probably the best recent example, who's the current Prime Minister of Pakistan. We had, of course, Jack Lynch here, became Taoiseach after all those exploits with Cork in the 1940s. So I was going through the record, 72 bouts, 62 wins, won his first title in 1998. As a flyweight at the age of 19, and then won a couple of years ago in 2019. He won a welterweight title, so an incredible career. But he's taken the Romario route. He's going into politics, and the only thing I ever think about when I think about Philippines politics is Imelda Marcos and the shoe collection. I haven't been really following it since the 80s, since Fernando Marcos and the shoe collection. And the regime, but I don't really know what's been going on there. But it seems like he's the man of the people, and he'll be the populist candidate next year outside of the ring. Fingers crossed he's better than Mr. Marcos, who I don't think people look back on too fondly. No, I think he might have been a bit of a dictator, if I remember. Luckily here in OTB we're in a different zone. But I don't know what you felt about the Ryder Cup lads. I'd be very much of the view that they were just the better players, the Americans, and we can look into all these picks and all these imponderables and questions about Harrington and all that kind of thing. I just think sometimes you need to boil it down to the simplicity that the Americans are the better team, you know. Yeah, that seems to be the consensus at this point, that there was very little that could have been done. And when your best players are playing really, really badly and stinking the joint out, there's not much you can do about it. John, good stuff. Thanks a million for that. All right, cheers. Lads. Take care. John Duggan giving us his thoughts there. OTB AM brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. And thanks to Gillette, we're celebrating the return to normality with a special prize of UEFA Champions League tickets to watch Chelsea against Malmo on the 20th of October, with flights and accommodation included. You can enter the competition via the Off the Ball Twitter page, where we'll be posting an image of a bearded sports person every day this week. Just respond to the post and tell us who the person is for your chance to win this amazing prize. Put your hashtag best face forward with Gillette. Who's this? Who does that beard belong to? It's not Jerry Adams, and it is not Tommy Tiernan. Kenny does know who it is.
You got there eventually, Kenny.
He's shit posting with us. OTB Gold today at 1 o'clock. Irish football special. Given, Quinn and McAteer in conversation with Kevin Kilban. This is on OTB Sports Radio today. Classic Game Club is Kerry against Tyrone in 2005. What a game that was. What a game that was. It'll be different next year when Stefan Cumber is
why are we showing this?
Slaying the midfielders from Tyrone. Retro Panel is caring for the sports person, and OTB Gold tonight is Colm Gooch Cooper, his career retrospective at 7 o'clock. The show will be live. We're going to take a quick break and back with Graham Hunter.
OTB AM. AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
Were you much of a dessert man in the canteen, or did you completely eschew any kind of sweet things as a footballer?
Absolutely not. Friday night in hotels, I used to look forward to it. I used to get rice pudding or apple crumble and custard, and I wouldn't care if Ronaldo or anyone walked through the door. There was almost stopping me getting it, to be honest. I was straight up for it. It was something I really look forward to. Ronaldo wouldn't have stopped me getting my apple crumble on Friday night, I promise you that.
Off the Ball, Saturdays from 1 on OTB Sports Radio. Listen live on the OTB Sports app.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
9:15 this morning. Graham Hunter is with us. Graham, good morning to you. How are you?
Top form, thanks, Chair.
The return of the Champions League and Leo Messi last night, setting the whole thing aflame over match day 2. We couldn't really have asked for much more in terms of drama and intrigue. One of the things that kind of flew under the radar here, and we'll get your opinion on Messi in a moment, but was Atletico and their performance against Milan. 1-0 down, a man up. Like, well, this is going to be one of those things where we actually see if they're still going to be as good this season as we think they might be. The result in the box score says last minute penalty, deep into stoppage time, gives them a 2-1 win away from home. What's the consensus on the quality of the performance, and how did they actually play?
Yeah, it's both the big Spanish results from last night fit into a pattern, Jer. I'd love to be able to say I can diagnose it for you, and this is the recipe everybody needs to take away for the remainder of the season. But all of the Spanish sides had looked multi-personalitied. There have been moments when Atleti have looked gorgeous. There's been one moment when Barcelona have looked exceptional, and that was at the weekend. And there have been moments when Real Madrid have looked as if they're rediscovering their personality, as if when Carvajal is back, when Valverde is full of vim and vigour, when Camavinga gives his cameos, Vinicius' development, they look fantastic too. And there have been times when each of the two Madrid teams, and you were picking on Atleti, have had to get out of jail. Atleti have either been drawing 0-0 or getting out of jail really late in games all through the season. Real Madrid, I think 8 times have now scored beyond the 85th minute in this season, both domestic and European. And the way in which Atleti's performance is being received is that this was a step ahead compared to where they have either been in games or dominated games and drawn 0-0. Their ability to unpick a defensive side once Milan started to pack their defence at 10 men and 1-0 up made such a difference. The way that, for example, Griezmann has been lambasted, and I mean really taken to task unfairly, in the way that Asprilla was blamed as the only reason Newcastle didn't win the title against Manchester United that season. And if you speak to Newcastle players at the time, they all said that's absolute rubbish. And how Cantona was the missing factor that won Leeds the title when they won the last ever league before the Premier League. And you speak to Leeds players, they're like, he made cameo appearances. Look at his number of minutes. Anyway, Griezmann arriving back at Atleti, both fans, media, and some ex-player pundits have been saying Griezmann disrupts things, he slows things down, there isn't a proper position for him anymore. Forgetting all the time that although he had no shots on target, no meaningful contributions to Atleti's games, in the bridge in between moving from Barcelona to Atleti, he played gorgeously for France. So getting the goal last night in the stadium where he hit the bar in the Champions League final, and I've interviewed him on that subject, he still castigates himself for that, still believes Atleti would have won the first ever Champions League final had he got that penalty away against Madrid 6 years ago now, I think it is. So him scoring and Lemar coming on and making a difference, because Lemar, for those, again, if Lemar, the French international, has flown under the radar for you in Ireland, don't let that happen anymore. He was the record transfer from Monaco. When he came, he looked good in the first season with Griezmann still at the club. As soon as Griezmann went away, Lemar seemed to lose interest. He was pale in terms of contributions to matches. Over the last season and a half, he's been exceptional, to the point at which he's easily in one of Atleti's best 3-4, most meaningful 3-4 players. Last couple of games he's been out injured. You notice the difference, the ability, particularly the ability to unpick defences, those runs that maybe take a 1-2 pass or runs where a deliverer of a pass can find a Frenchman. He made a big difference when he came on last night. Penalty tucked away, 2-1 win. It's a gigantic thing psychologically to win at San Siro after losing to Madrid in the Champions League final there. Griezmann to perform, to win against a bank 10 defence. It isn't simply just a huge 3 points. People are hailing it as a potential psychological breakthrough for this team, which it has an extraordinary squad. I'm not saying they're going to win the Champions League, but if you're looking at Spain right now and saying, where does the threat in the Champions League potentially come? Atleti's squad is gorgeous.
Real Madrid then, Graham. I mean, it's you talk about get out of jail. I didn't see the full game. I think everybody is kind of in the same boat as myself. We all just saw that wonder goal to win it. If you look at SofaScore, who give you the up and downs of the flow of the game, seeing who was in charge throughout, I think Sheriff maybe had one little peak. Not even for their 2 goals, they had one little peak, and the second goal came out of nothing. The entire thing was Real Madrid. So is it fair to say that this was just a total freak, and we can bury this and forget about it?
The first thing to say, given that I know you two love a bit, and Kenny loves a bit of Schadenfreude, you have to imagine Sheahan, the UEFA chief, let's call it a James Bond villain mansion at the top of a hill in Switzerland, just giving it this all the way as if he was at the darts, as a team that should never be allowed in the Champions League, and certainly would never be allowed in the Super League. And Florentino's in his palco, in his private box or in the president's box at Real Madrid, and Sheffield's going, there's your Super League up your Spanish backside, and can you just imagine it? Because this is the very thing that the Super League was meant to keep out, not just shocks, but like it's an invitational club, and nobody was ever going to go, well, Dove, I wonder if we should we Florentino, should we? No, Sheriff, thanks very much, goodbye. Look, on the game itself, I still testify that Sheriff did things that, for example, Celta tried to do at the Bernabeu. At the moment, Ancelotti has made retouches on Zidane's system, but one of the things that has not changed is that even though they play 4 at the back, it's effectively 2, because the fullbacks are encouraged to play as wing-backs in a back 4. So Carvajal is out. That makes a difference. Carvajal is a superior right back compared to, say, Nacho or Lucas. It was Nacho last night. But the fullbacks were dreadfully out of position for the first goal. When Cristiano, for example, also to combine with that, Real Madrid and Ancelotti talked about this in the press conference, don't press high up the park. They might press when you come to the halfway line or just beyond it. But teams get the chance to build up and think, no, I want the ball to go. And therefore, if a challenge is won in midfield, then suddenly there's freedom and you put it over the fullback's heads. And that's how the first goal came. The header from the man I've never heard of before, and I'm going to claim his name is unpronounceable, but Yakshiboev's header is beautiful, but Cristiano's cross is completely free. And teams in La Liga and Sheriff are a very wealthy club. They've got good scouting. They know that's how you unpick Madrid. If you can find the ball into the corner and behind the fullback, you'll have a cross. Alaba's got a walkabout, and Alaba, since he came from Bayern Munich, has been important, has been interesting, but he's definitely come. I'm a Bayern Munich player. I'm at Madrid now. I'm here to enjoy myself, not to be rigorous. Alaba's way out of position before Yakshiboev scores the header. And you'd love to say, for those who you've described what happened at the end, everybody's looking at the result thinking, they're chasing at 1-1. They're battering Sheriff's goal. Sheriff's goalkeeper, who is Athanasides, the Greek, has a brilliant game. Saves one absolute rasper from Modric with his face, full face save. On a night like that, you think, well, this is an FA Cup shock. This is all the ingredients. And what will happen is it'll be a breakaway goal. And it's not. And Real Madrid didn't play with massive authority about how to break the team down. They faced a Greek goalkeeper who was exceptional. When they lose, your point is good. They lose to Sebastian Dill's goal. He's a Luxembourg international. It's goal of the season so far, probably anywhere in Europe. It's extraordinary. It's not just everybody up for Madrid, the ball over the top and 1v1. It's remarkable. One-off, probably a goal like that. We're not going to see that from that player again at the Bernabeu in his lifetime. It was gorgeous to see because of the absolute disbelief in Sheriff's players, despite the fact that they played looking as if they thought they knew how to win it. The fact that they do 2-1 at the end of the game is what, for me, football's all about. It does the Champions League. Good to see shock results like that. And I couldn't get the image of UEFA's chief celebrating and sending a little raspberry to Florentina out of my head all night. It was pretty special. But yeah, if you played that game 100 times again, Real Madrid would draw or win the majority of them.
Graham, do you mind me asking you, sorry Ken here, you spoke about the Atletico team and the kind of strength and depth there. In relation to this present Real Madrid team, you mentioned Alaba there playing at centre-half. I believe he's been accommodated at the moment. Now, wouldn't strike me as that would be his best position necessarily, but where's the fundamental problems in that present Real Madrid squad, and particularly the kind of starting 11? Where are the frailties that are going to prevent them from challenging probably in the Champions League against the likes of Manchester City and PSG? Where are the areas of the team that need investment and need strength? Because you look at it on the surface, Graham, you look at the team, the likes of Modric there, obviously Benzema, Kroos, and scattering the players, and they look reasonably strong, but clearly that's not the case. There isn't weaknesses within the squad. Where are they fundamentally, and where does Ancelotti need to spend going forward to get them back up to the level that they've been at previously?
Can I say the first thing would be that time has moved on and left some of Real Madrid's work behind. What we see when Bayern Munich or Dortmund, Haaland or the top English clubs play, there's now a blend of terrific strategy, terrific technical skills and power and pace. It feels to me as if that hybrid in the really leading, even if you just want to say Bayern and exclude Dortmund, but I think with Haaland up front, you include them. And you look at the way in which you guys cover the majority Premier League compared to other leagues in Europe, majority. And you'll see that they play with a tremendous pace and power, but with probably more strategy and more changes of formation and as much technical skill as at any time in our lives. That combination Real Madrid don't have. They're extremely good in terms of knowledge of how to get a win, playing under pressure. They have patches of individual brilliance, but Benzema's at an age where he's playing brilliantly. He's playing absolutely brilliantly, but he's at an age whereby that ability to sprint and beyond, that power and pace, that's not his thing. If you look at the midfield, when Kroos is back, which he came back last night, when Modric is in the team, when Casemiro's in the team, they're all extremely technically clever. They all can control the game if it's played at their pace, but none of them have possessed that absolutely bursting physical pace and pressing and speed of delivery, and nor does the team play that way. So they're King Canute at the moment, so just trying to roll back the tide and say no. The King, dresses like this, keep the waves back, and they're not going to be able to do that to win the Champions League. Real Madrid, they're addressing it with Camavinga. He's 18, so Camavinga is the type of footballer that they need to reproduce, and they need to give more responsibility to Valverde. But for example, Till's goal last night comes from an area where the ball's not pressed at the edge of the box, where Casemiro, had he been on, but he's exhausted. He played all summer for Brazil in the Copa America. He plays every game that he's available for Real Madrid. So in 66 minutes, Casemiro is taken off. He's not at the edge of the box where traditionally he cleans up. So there are lots of areas where, and Benzema is the number one ball threat. Vinicius is developing, Vinicius is extraordinary, but it's not just a Galactico idea that they want to buy Mbappe and Haaland. Now, whether they get both of them, please don't be mistaken. We talked about this just before the market closed. I said to the lads, look out, the market's not closed. They're going to desperately try and get Mbappe. They did. They'll have Mbappe signed up by January for next summer. They want Haaland too, whether they get him or not. It isn't simply Galactico ideas like, look, we've got the best signings, we could beat anybody in the world. I don't particularly believe that Haaland will go to Madrid. But what they do need is an added goal threat. So right across the pitch. And for example, it's a new centre-half pairing without Varane, without Ramos. It's got potential, but Alaba's not particularly tall. Maybe you, Kenny, if I'm interpreting right, you think he should be left back. Ancelotti came out and said he's my left centre-half, and I don't have another left-footed centre-half in the squad. So there's retouches to do everywhere, but the philosophy of how they play, I think it's fallen behind a little bit, Kenny.
Just want to quickly talk about tonight's game, and the spectre of Villarreal is something that has got a little bit of ghost now for Manchester United. So this isn't a game where they're going to be in any way complacent about what happens, particularly given the recent run of form. Nor should they be, because there's every chance that this game Villarreal come and are very defensively solid and maybe aren't too ambitious about winning the actual match tonight. But that's where we've seen teams beat Manchester United when you sit back and defend and hit them on the break, and that's exactly the it's what Manchester United fear. So, what are your level? How scared should Manchester United fans be about tonight?
One of the great things that that both the Europa League final and the Super Cup final in Belfast did for me was it was being allowed again to see the thing I obsess about, being allowed to see the training session. In the instance of the Belfast one, where they trained second after Chelsea, it was a long session, and you get to learn so much. Anybody who thinks that the fact that Villarreal could work out a draw against Manchester United across 120 minutes and then draw against the European champions Chelsea again across 120 minutes, nobody should think it's a fluke. Unai Emery is not an out-and-out defence-only coach. That's not true. It's not part of the bus coach, but he is obsessed about the way, and they call it basculation, which is that's the scales to make sure that there's an equilibrium across everywhere, and almost as if his players were roped together, which I know some coaches have done in the past. The way in which he coaches the movements that everybody has to do to compensate for each other, to keep the spaces tight between men and tight between lines. The way in which he coaches that and intervenes and yells them through everything repeatedly is the reason why defensively they are quite a good team. When they don't have Gerard Moreno, they're less dangerous. They're less likely to win big matches. Danjuma, who you'd have covered a little bit for Bournemouth, I think, last season, looks very promising because he gives them what Diaz doesn't have, the new signing who combined for the goal against Chelsea. Even Gerard Moreno, who's an exceptional player, doesn't have this pace. Danjuma does have this pace. So, for my taste, Villarreal are not quite at their best at the moment. Manny Pacquiao is only just coming back from injury, and without Gerard Moreno, they're a lesser side. But the way in which they organise and hold and can play on the break to Danjuma is one of the threats, meantime, until they become full strength again. Yeremy Pino is also a very good player and quicker than the other ones in terms of the break. So there are breaks. There are ways in which you could see Villarreal scoring, and it tends to be a draw between these two sides. But I still like watching Villarreal. I still like the way they try to pass the ball. They give a beautiful display at Bernabeu at the weekend, drawing 0-0 there. And listen, you might be out of time, but I don't want to leave the subject of the Champions League without talking about Benfica Barcelona, because the amount of debt that Barcelona are in is absolutely horrendous. It isn't just the global debt and the 1.4 billion. It's the way in which debt and repayment of debt is affecting the club on a day-to-day basis. Half of that squad are out there having taken massive wage cuts, either deferring payments or giving money back full-time forever to the club. They lost the first game against Bayern Munich. They'll lose in match day 6 in Munich. I keep saying that. I think it's true. That leaves 6 off 18. That's 12 points. If they lose in Lisbon, there's 9 points left to play for in the group. They'd have to have a 100% performance against Dinamo Kiev twice and at home against Benfica. At the moment, you couldn't bank on that happening. You can't always bank on 9 points seeing you through. Barcelona haven't been knocked out in the group stages since 2001, and the amount of money, you all know the bean counters. If you look at going out in the group compared to even going through to the knockout round or the quarterfinals, you can be talking about a 60 million difference. If you go far in the tournament, you can be talking about an 80 million euro difference. Barcelona cannot do without that money. The game in Lisbon against Benfica is of monumental importance. And if anybody's not doing it and doesn't already fancy seeing Villarreal match at Old Trafford, just tune in to Benfica against Barcelona and expect to see fear and loathing on the face of one acumen if they're losing that match. And also, last word for me, unless you've got another question, please, guys, all of you, Kenny, listeners, viewers, Gavi. I told you a year ago that Pedri, I got all frothy at the mouth and evangelical, and Pedri since then has played just about every single game that exists in the world, won the Spanish Cup, the Olympic silver medal, was semi-finalist in the European Championship. He's still 18. Gavi, slightly different style of playing, as exciting, as extraordinary. A month ago he was 16. He is a phenomenon. Never, I don't think ever, not just in my memory, I don't think any club has ever given debuts to 17 and 18-year-olds in the space of 2 years, like Ansu, Elish, Gavi and Pedri. I don't think it's ever happened. They're custom-made ready for elite football at 17 and 18. Gavi, watch him tonight. Extraordinary.
Graham, appetite suitably wet. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Cheers, Graham.
I'm looking forward to that now. I'm going to stick on the Benfica game as well. It's 9:33. We're nearly out of time, but when we were talking about the crazy gang earlier on, it struck me, Kenny, that we haven't had you on since the terrible news broke about Joe Kinnear and the illness that he's suffering. And I just remember Joe obviously signed you for Wimbledon, so he would have been your manager at Wimbledon. Is that right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he was. He brought me in. I think it was his choice, along with Joe Goodman. We came together, so yeah, I had a good relationship with Joe. I liked him. Very kind of charismatic figure. He was the perfect fit for the football club at that time. That kind of big personality, very vocal. You'd have your falling outs with him, and many players did. But
he played right back as well, didn't he?
He was excellent. I didn't realise how good he was, to be honest with you. I actually spoke with a few people over time, and I got that sense of, well, you don't realise how good a player that he actually was.
And you know the way managers always take particular interest in their own positions. You were a right back when you were arriving.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
And a dub as well. So I'm sure there was a bit of extra pressure / kind of expectation.
Yeah, but he was never one of them. He never big about talking up himself. Very modest in that respect. Like I said, I had to find that information about him. And not so much a coach. We're talking about kind of Solskjaer in terms of their strengths. Joe wasn't necessarily a coach, going to delegate that to a certain extent to the people around him. But just good in the dressing room with the players. And like I said, the type who you'd kind of fall out with, but you couldn't stay mad at him for very long. He had that type of personality. He'd draw you back in. You know, you might be fuming a little bit. He'd crack a little one, throw one in your direction. He'd have you back on board again. That type of personality. Like I said, yeah, he drove the football club for that period of time. I actually saw him a couple of years ago. We had a I'm sure his wife mind me saying we had a get together a couple of years ago. There was a few phone calls made to go around and hook up with him for a few drinks, and quite a lot of the lads turned up, and he was in good form that night. We enjoyed his company. That was some years ago now. Obviously his condition has deteriorated since. I think it's been well documented. I know his wife has spoken in some detail about it. Yeah, so there's a lot of sadness around him at the moment. But at the same time, I'll always remember the time spent in his company, and the kind of the good moments that we spent together as a team, as a group. And he was a big part of that, big part of the success, and a big part of the dressing room.
Yeah, because the original Crazy Gang was the group who won the FA Cup, but there was your generation inherits that atmosphere and name tag and spirit. But actually, it's a wild time at the club.
Crazy light, I call it when I came in. Crazy light. No, it certainly wasn't as bad. And Joe was smart. Joe was astute, because we were kind of tagged with a certain style of playing. That certainly was the case, the original kind of Crazy Gang. But for me, kind of Joe modified it a little bit. Probably didn't get enough credit. Yeah, there was a direct style to our play, absolutely, but he kind of integrated different types of player within the team, more of football and players, the likes of Michael Hughes. I remember coming into the Northern Ireland International, very clever little player. Ivan Leonards, the Norwegian international, moved on to Tottenham. So he kind of integrated these type of players into the team and just kind of changed that style of play ever so slightly, which he probably didn't get enough credit for. I'm very good in terms of, like, he asked me on a couple of occasions. I remember one year we had a bit of a struggle in the league, scratching around for a few results, and he asked me to man mark, and I mean proper man mark a couple of times. He came to me in training and said, look, I need you to do a job for the team here in the weekend. That was pretty much unheard, certainly unheard of now. You hear about man mark, but it's not man marking now, like, you know what I mean? But this was, and he kind of took me back a little bit, and I said, not sure, let me think about that. I think it was Eugenio Middlesbrough Seedman Manham actually was another one at Liverpool. But it's kind of out of the box stuff. Like, I thought about it, and I came back to my spoke and I said, yeah, I'll do it. And we did it for a couple of games and
stuff. How did it go? So you on Janino?
Went okay. Yeah, it was a couple of lads. There was a fella from Manchester City, the little operator, the kind of Georgia fella, Kincladze. Yeah, Kincladze was the first one, to be fair. I think we got a draw. It kind of suited me, to be honest with you, because I was quite into it actually. The more I thought about it, and just kind of commit myself to that, just kind of actually separate myself from the game, from the whole game. Even when we had possession, wasn't really interested, and literally just, you know what I mean, literally marking. So it was all very interesting, but that was quite unusual. But again, like I said, kind of thinking out of the box somewhat, like, you know what I mean.
And McManaman, what was that like?
Oh yeah, it was, yeah. You know, varying degrees of success.
He was good.
Yeah, he was good. But yeah, I liked me time with Joe. I liked the personality, and he pulled the whole club together, and we all kind of rode in behind him. at that particular time, and it was a great time for the club. And like I said,
finished sixth
he was
one of the seasons.
Yeah, we might have done. We might have, a little bit kind of yo-yoed up and down. But
that's like finishing sixth for the budget that they had compared to the other budgets in the league. To finish sixth was a remarkable achievement.
Yeah, you're right. And bought some good players. Moved on some very good players. So a good eye for talent, Joe, in terms of the players that he brought in.
Terry Phelan there at the same time?
No, Terry just left.
Gone,
yeah,
okay.
that lad, those lads had just had just moved on. But it was a good time. Like I said, looking back, a lot of fond memories, and that's kind of what you focus on, because that's when Joe was in his prime, wasn't he? He was at his best. He was a bit real figurehead, not only just at Wimbledon, I'd suggest, but actually in football in general, I'd say.
Yeah, no, totally. And that whole Dublin Dons move, were you aware of that? That was all in the ether. He was one of the central characters.
He said it. I remember saying it, so I said, Joe, come on, what's the story here? This not happening, is it? And he said, look, there's a good chance this could happen. He said, I'm speaking to people upstairs, and he said, I think it's a goer. And he was actually quite excited about it. I remember coming out, actually, wherever I was, speaking to him, thinking, oh, actually surprised me. And
going home,
but he felt, but when you look back at it now, I mean, you're talking about the game becoming a global game, etc., matches all over the world, and this, there's been a lot of talk of playing club fixtures, taking them here and there. Spanish Liga wasn't, let's take Barcelona to America and play games over there. So you look at now, you think, well, people are like, it's just stupid crap. What are you talking about, picking up a club and going to starting a club? And that's ridiculous. It doesn't seem as ridiculous now, does it? And it did tick a lot of boxes. The support for English football in Dublin, would they get behind the Dublin base
straight away? Just sign some Irish players.
So you look back at it now, and he was kind of part of that. I think at the time he was getting excited about it. Didn't happen for whatever reason, but
so we wish him and the family all the best, and good to get your memories of that, Kenny, because we hadn't actually spoken to you since it happened. So OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, put your best face forward with their new and improved razors, and we obviously have a brilliant competition running at the moment. There's UEFA Champions League tickets to the game against Chelsea, the game between Chelsea and Malmo on the 20th of October. Flights, accommodation are included. You can enter the competition through the Off The Ball Twitter page. We're putting up an image of a bearded sports person every day. You need to tell us who this is. The hashtag is best face forward, so put your best face forward with Gillette. Respond to the post and tell us who that person is for your chance to become our daily winner. We're going to hear from Andy Mitten on tomorrow's show. He's at Old Trafford for Man United Villarreal. We'll chat to the former Donegal footballer representing Ireland in rowing. There's much more as well. It's live from 7:30 tomorrow. You can get the full podcast in the OTB football feed, but right now we're going to bring you part of our exclusive interview on OTB with the Republic of Ireland assistant manager Keith Andrews talking to Joe. Enjoy.
Because I suppose for you and for Stephen, a low point is Luxembourg. My abiding memory, and it's great to have you in and to tease this stuff out as opposed to 2-minute interview here and 5-minute kind of flash interview. My abiding memory of that game, aside from the result, is Ireland repeatedly trying to play out in the left-hand side of our pitch and getting nowhere very fast. And I look back at the stats. So Bazunu gave the ball 11 times to Kieran Clark, 4 times to Darragh O'Shea, handful of times to the rest, and basically never went long. And if you look at who those players all passed to, I think Enda Stevens, he either passed to Kieran Clark or to Josh Cullen. Most of Cullen's passes went back to Clark. You get the point I'm making. It was like a triangle of doom here. And Luxembourg sensed it early. We didn't beat the press. We kept trying. Fair enough, you got to keep trying. They sensed it even more. They kept coming. I got the impression Luxembourg were looking around at each other saying, this is great. We know what's coming let's press the holy hell out of these. And it really sucked a lot of life out of Ireland's performance. And I was thinking, if I'm seeing this, Keith Andrews and Stephen Kenny are seeing this. So what's going on? And so talk to us about that, because that's part of the overplaying conversation a bit.
Frustrating and not adapting maybe to what we should have and could have done. So you spoke a little bit there about maybe Serbia, if you're luring players onto you, there's a reason for that. Can it be sharp enough at times to play in, to go around them, to go through them? If not, then we bypass it. I spoke before about one of the big KPIs around our performance levels is bypassing opponents, getting past under control, not just lumping it downfield and hoping for the best. There's a purpose to how we go about things. They set up to show it that side. There's no doubt about it. If you press pause on the game, you'll see it was lopsided. They wanted us to go to that side. How could we get around that? Go back out, use your goalkeeper to go the opposite side as they come across one side of the pitch. Or, as you've alluded to, maybe as they're coming out and they're on Josh Cullen or they're on Enda Stevens, then it's a simple clip from Kieran Clark into our front players. The knock-on effect of that, for me, not always the player on the ball. I think the options and the angles ahead of the ball should have been better from our front players. Could have got across, could have made better different angles and clipped in. But we didn't adapt well enough within the game. There's no doubt about that. We didn't react.
Why is it so hard to get that message onto the pitch?
Like the heat of the battle, it's, opposition throw spanners in the work. That a Luxembourg manager has been in place for a long time. They've got a really good unity about how they go about things. They're spiky opposition. We've seen that against numerous teams in this group. It's not always easy, even without fans. Now fans are back in. It's practically impossible. That was the one luxury, I suppose, in terms of getting little tidbits of information, but to totally go away from that in terms of they'd done their due diligence on us in terms of stopping something or setting something up to try and press. That was their pressing trigger. You asked what ours were against Azerbaijan. That was certainly theirs. Allow it to go to the left-hand side, try and trap us in there, and then we didn't react well enough. And we know that, and we've spoke about obviously at half-time, and we spoke about it post-game in terms of what we could have and should have done a little bit better on that occasion.
You mentioned there at the very start of the interview, and certain performance indicators, certain maybe the game plan, we didn't pick the right game plan, or maybe there's a breakdown in communication when certain things go wrong. What game of them all do you feel we went with the wrong game plan or the wrong formation, or we really in hindsight got that wrong?
I've rightly or wrongly, I've probably split a line between last year. September, October, November was just so difficult. And it was so, if I go back to just briefly the start of that and talk a little bit about penetration and how we play, how we want to play, I think first things first, you have to, and Stephen's big on this, you have to establish control. We have to get to a stage where our players are comfortable having the ball, dictating the play, being the ones that are probing, being the ones that are proactive within the game, maybe taking more of a responsibility in possession. And I think it's probably fair to say within certain games at the start we were keeping the ball too much. We're out looking for that penetrative pass and penetrative run. So that was the evolution in the early days. So the early ones, even though there was decent performances in the main, I think certain aspects of those games will be quite frustrating in terms of performances and in terms of maybe personnel. I think it's always, again, easy in hindsight. We just spoke about Porrick, obviously, the weekend, and
Harrington,
and in terms of selections, and it's always easy after the game. Should have gone with him. Should have maybe brought him on at this stage instead. It's a constant challenge, and it's a constant one where we will at times beat ourselves up over. Looked at that?
What's the one? Because I know a game had to pop into your head there. What's the one you would be more likely to beat yourselves up over?
I think the Luxembourg game is the one that's tough to take in terms of the result and in terms of certainly the first half performance, in terms of the way we allowed them to dictate where we were going, even though we dominated possession within the game. I still feel, again, we shouldn't have lost the game. It's just one of those where when we go back last year when we played Wales, and we speak about this a lot actually, even within the group, when we played Wales in the Nations League and we played Finland as well, we watched a lot of their games, as you do in the build up to the game, and I spoke about falling one side of the result, one side or the other. In a lot of both of their respective games, they just fall on the right side of the result. They have that knack, they had that knack at that stage of being able to find ways of just coming out, and I still think we're getting to that stage. We're getting very, very close. If you look at the Portuguese game, we found a way of getting the equaliser against Serbia, which was brilliant for the group, and again showing that collective resilience to be able to keep going and try and forge away. But look, in terms of one, obviously when you look at the Luxembourg one, it would probably be that one.
I wanted to get your take on how much chopping and changing has been with the team, because it's quite notable. Like in advance of talking to you, I went through all however many games. How many is it now? You're up to 15 maybe?
16 isn't it? 16
games, yeah. A huge amount of changes all the time. So, for instance, take the most recent camp, because that's fresh in people's memories, and it's Portugal, and so it's O'Shea, Duffy Egan, it's Coleman on the right, Doherty on the left, and it seems to work very well. And you put on Bamadelli, which is brave move in fairness, 36 minutes. And so you couldn't fault that. But say, for instance, let's do it through a certain player. So say Josh Cullen, for instance, in your midfield. So against Portugal, he'll have Matt Doherty as his left wing back. He'll be in there with Hendrick and Jamie McGrath, who was very good. Then you go to the Azerbaijan game and McLean goes to wing back, so suddenly Doherty's not there and he's in with Malumbi and he's got the 3 young lads up front. So if you're Josh Cullen again, things have changed quite a lot. And then you go to Serbia and so McLean is in again, but it's Hendrick to his left, so it's Hendrick who's more working with McLean, and again he's got a different picture in front of him. It didn't strike me, and this is the question, because I'm thinking of you and Trapattoni, and you knew it was Glenn Whelan, you knew it was behind you, you knew it was in front of you, but it did allow, maybe there was a staleness towards the end, but it did allow relationships on the pitch to grow and little understandings and moments of, I know Glenn's going to do that.
I think that's really important.
So I just look at a lot of these team selections. You take Josh Cullen as an example. I feel like we're throwing out a lot of teams where if I'm Josh Cullen, using him as the conduit, it's different every time. Like, is it overly player friendly to to throw them at each? Like, it's almost impossible to imagine Parrott, Connolly, Ida clicking perfectly the first time. And I get building for the future, but someone like Cullen, he's never getting the same picture.
It's nothing about building for the future in terms of the actual team selection for the last camp. There's a few different aspects to it.
But do you get the point, though?
Yeah, I absolutely get the point, and I agree with you in terms of if you have that rapport with someone and you know how they're going to play, you know their traits, you know he's going to take it on that side, and then I'll make the run accordingly, etc., etc.
So I wouldn't feel if it's a criticism, maybe it's a question. It's a question because there's different reasons for the changes, but I wouldn't feel this Irish team have been given enough opportunities to go out again the next day and do it together.
Yeah, I think there's a few aspects to that. Triple header windows are something that we've never had to deal with as a nation. 3 games in the space of 7 days with the intensity that we're playing at against this type of opposition is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So you've got to factor in, and again, that's something we're very conscious of. This morning, before I left, email players' minutes, who played what this week. We're very conscious of players coming in that are undercooked, that haven't kicked the ball for their clubs. So can we bring someone in? Jeff had hardly played a game for Newcastle before that camp. Similarly with Jason Malumbi. Other end of the spectrum, Josh Cullen. He played a lot of football for Anderlecht. A lot. Plays 90 minutes every single week, 2-3 times a week for Anderlecht, and playing very, very well. Some players are not capable of playing 390 minutes in the space of 7 days. That's where they're at in terms of their physical capability coming into camp. So that's a constant juggling act.
Is that why, for instance, say the likes of McGrath, who does well against Portugal, doesn't play against Azerbaijan, when you think he might have actually worked well in that game, maybe in behind?
I think sometimes it's that in terms of what it's taken out of them. Sometimes we're learning as well in terms of going back to last year when we've played a player in the first game and then they've played really well and played 80-90 minutes for instance. Can they go again? Yeah, we think they can. They recover well, but they haven't.
Right.
So then we're going off our experiences of a certain player as well. And there's also the element of what we feel is going to hurt the opposition in terms of the profile of that particular player in that position. So they're the kind of they're the balls that you're juggling in terms of players coming in undercooked, overcooked, where they're at in terms of their physical capabilities. Is it realistic that this player can play the full 3 games? And the further you go up the pitch, we're big on our GPS and we work really close with Statsport, who are phenomenal to work with. The higher intensity running is the one that gets you. So you look at Seamus in terms of played the first game in terms of as a wing back, probably slightly different for him in terms of what he's even playing for Everton, playing in a back 4, picking and choosing when he goes. A big part of how we played against Portugal was obviously Matt Doherty and Seamus Coleman breaking into that space. So his physical loads were big. Played in a different position in the game against Azerbaijan, tucked one in, obviously right-sided centre back, and unfortunately he tweaked his hamstring right on. So these are constantly things we're thinking of in terms of who can do what is realistic for them to achieve. And obviously you've got to bring the players' care into it. You can't just turf them out there. You've got someone like Shane Duffy or John Egan, like there's a less explosive nature to how they play with the nature of the position, obviously, compared to a wing back or one of our explosive wingers, for instance, or forwards.
It's a fair enough answer. Like, it's a pity Because I'm sure you would like a bit more consistency.
Well, if you go back to the traditional double headers, then it's manageable.
Yeah.
You go back to it. This window's a little bit different.
You've 2.
Barring the travel, which is a serious jaunt over to Azerbaijan, 2 games, a week build-up. It's a bit of a luxury compared to what we've had, obviously.
We mentioned Bazunu. Who are the other positives for you over the last 15 months? Who's come through and impressed you?
I think it's both for me. I think it's not right to just talk about younger players. I think you've got to look at middle of the road players, as in age.
Not standard.
No, not standard. Important to point that out. Some of the younger ones have been amazing.
Such as?
Darragh O'Shea, for instance, the way he's grasped his opportunity, his mentality of how he's come through, and the managers he's had at, say, West Brom, that, like him. Might not have known him, Slaven Bilic, but like him. Sam Allardyce, now another manager. So he's a big miss for both club and country. You touched on the goalkeepers in that area. The amount we've brought through, and again, I think that's what you get in terms of performances. Sometimes they're there, sometimes there's that drop off, which is natural with younger players. I think when we look at 2 in particular, Andrew, who's obviously just come into it, brought him in the summer to the training camp we had in Spain and played Andorra and Hungary, obviously. That kind of, and Jamie McGrath came into that, Chio as well, like Benny, who's brilliant character, personality, and has real attributes that we like, and he's playing very well for Rotherham. If you look at that camp in terms of bringing them into the environment that was a little bit less hectic, settling in, getting to know the players, that was a huge benefit. Andrew and Adam are developing really on international watch. That's the harsh reality of it. Adam isn't getting as many minutes as he would like, certainly as we would like at Norwich, and that's obviously something that we're dependent on. We want him playing, we're eager for him to play. Andrew played last week, Stephen was at the game against Liverpool, played very, very well. But the way that they're developing, if they continue to do that alongside their club form, where will they be in 6, 12, 18 months with the opportunity that the manager giving them? Because you touch on it, bringing him on after half an hour in Portugal, Andrew, like, brave move. I don't know if many managers would have done that. I think traditionally we would have erred on the side of caution, but we have that much faith. So there's the younger ones, but you can't forget about the journey someone like Shane Duffy's been on.
No.
And the character he's shown, and the desire to play for us and constantly be there and be unbelievable around the place. Matt Doherty in the last camp I thought was outstanding. So again, a little bit of a tough time at the moment with his club, but that platform and that, I think the other thing is probably is important for us, I think, as staff. We try and create a bit of a support network. Player welfare is really important to us in terms of looking after the players, not just in camp, but out of camp. So the ones that are going through that tough time, if you're playing week in, week out, nobody needs to hear from us. If you're scoring goals, you don't. It's the ones that are having that tricky time, the ones that are out of contract, like Robbie Brady at the moment, that might need a little bit. So that's always been something that I've thought was needed, and it's certainly something that myself and Stephen are big on.
One last football one. Goals going to be the issue, aren't they? So you go back, you look at all the results, it just jumps out a million miles in that period that you mentioned, which doesn't sound fun, around October, November, including the Slovakia performance. There are 6 games in a row with no goals, and then there's the Serbia game, which breaks the deadlock a bit. The Brown header, probably the best goal of the tenure. Brilliant team goal, and a real moment of, wow, this is maybe the possibility. There's the James Collins goal that night as well, where the keeper is charged down. But again, you go no goals against Luxembourg, 1 against Qatar. It's a set-piece move. Andorra is its own weird game, and I'd penny for your thoughts at 1-0 down there. But then Hungary, no goals. In fairness, Portugal, there's a goal, but it's a John Egan header. Azerbaijan, it's Shane Duffy. Serbia, it's an own goal. So we bemoaned international managers after Robbie Keane saying, well, look, I don't have a Robbie Keane. What do you want me to do? There is a certain truth in it. What can you and Stephen do to try and get more goals?
You'll never hear that out of this manager, certainly me. We love working with this group of players. They buy into absolutely everything we throw at them, everything. So you will never ever hear that, and that's something that I've been critical of things I've heard in the past, even when I was involved as a player. But you won't hear that from this manager's lip. There's utmost confidence in what this group can achieve, and I think when you tie in certain experienced players, which I've alluded to in terms of what they bring, and the younger players trying to develop to a level. Goals are not easily to come by at international level. That's fact. That's where we have to be brilliant at basics. Every restart, you touch on the pressing of goal kicks, out of possession. Can we win it back higher up the pitch so there's less defenders to go and be where they're slightly spread? Or is it a set piece? We work really, really well on our set pieces, and we've got players that are obviously dangerous from those. You just have to find ways, Joe.
Yeah.
That's where it's at. It's not easy to come by them.
The FAI is, or certainly was, a dysfunctional organisation, and that leaves a legacy behind. Now, where I thought maybe we saw that mushroom up was around the Wembley video. And there's a 5-day investigation into that video. It proves costly because you lose Damien Duff, you lose Alan Kelly. What went on there? Are there people or a person behind the scenes acting against the best interests of you, Stephen, and the team, in your opinion?
I don't know. I still don't know. Which irks me a lot in terms of not knowing exactly what happened. We'll go to the video. I think it was blown out of all proportion. I really do. I'm very comfortable what was shown to the players that night. In terms of how it was conducted in the aftermath, was I totally enamoured? Probably not. I look at my relationship and working relationship with Duffer, and I was really, really sad to see Duffer go, like devastated. It was a horrible time in the aftermath. It was already a tough few months, which I've spoke to you about, but in terms of that time and the aftermath of that, dealing with that and speaking with him and the relationship I've had with him for such a long time and very close with him, I was devastated he left, like really, really devastated.
And so why does he go, and can you not talk him round?
Look, it's Damon's prerogative. It's not for me to get into Damon's business here or anywhere really, and I've got much respect for him. I certainly wouldn't, but from my perspective, I was disappointed that he left. We've been lucky, and it's one of Stephen's best attributes, in my opinion. He recruits unbelievable staff. He really does. I'm not talking about me.
If you do
here,
say
by
so
the way.
yourself.
No, I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the backroom team, the masseurs, people, not just professionals. Anthony Barry's come in from Chelsea, who's been brilliant to work with, slightly different to Damien. Love working with him, love his views on the game, a rapport around. Similarly with Dean Kiley, I think he's been outstanding with the young goalkeepers. And again, for me personally, love working with him. So it wasn't a nice chapter. There's no way of getting away from that. It hurt. It wasn't nice. The spotlight that came on was something you just had to get through. And it was a horrible period. It was one way of thinking, this is just unsavoury. It's not what's needed, clearly, with the journey that we were on.
And I do accept it's overblown, but is it right that Alan Kelly didn't think much of the video? Like there must have been some people who didn't think much of it.
I don't know.
Okay.
I can't say. I've spoke to lots and lots of players, staff members, in depth about exactly what went on, but the feeling I certainly got in general was there was no issue. It was blown out of all proportion.
So you don't know, for instance, why an FAI investigation happened? You don't know who makes the complaint or why all that kicked off?
Which is.
Do you have a suspicion of who it is?
Yeah.
And do you confront that person?
No, it's probably not the right thing to do. I think you know me well enough that I'm quite
confrontational. If it requires.
I'll front things.
Yeah.
There's an honesty about how I like to go about my life, full stop. And if I've got a problem with you, I would say it to you. And like, I don't want an argument. I will just say it to you. And I would expect that in return. That's the type of relationships I like in my life. But in this particular instance, I don't know, which is probably makes it worse and harder.
Do you feel it's rude to go in and ask someone and accuse someone?
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is, yeah, unless you know conclusively that it is that person.
And have you and Stephen and the team been able to make changes since all of that went on to try and protect the group a bit more, or are you stuck with the fact that like there's people on the payroll and the FAI is not, it's not a new organisation?
There's obviously been, Stephen changed a lot initially in terms of the staff, when you think about it, and like I said, they've been brilliant people, whether it's on the sports science side, what we do on there, GPS with Stat Sport, the masseurs. coaching staff, like it's unfortunately Rory Higgins left to go to become the manager at Derry City. Stephen Royce has come in and again took up that mantle and been brilliant with it as well. Like, so there's constantly been really good people that he's had to change, which he didn't want to have to change.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Put your